Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final race meeting of the Virtual Motorsport Online TCUK Championship, the end of another campaign here on R Factor 2, and we're at the beautiful Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, of course, where the real-world British Touring Car Championship finishes its campaign, and it only feels like 10 minutes ago since they did so in the real world, with Tom Ingram being the champion. Probably should have warned for spoilers, to be honest, but with me, Chaz Draycott, in the commentary box this week, I'm delighted to have with me Paul Jeffrey, my partner in crime for the Motorsport Games this year, the FIA Motorsport Games this year. And Paul, it's been a wonderful time since then, but it already feels like so long ago since we were at Paul Ricard. But a virtual Brands Hatch, I'd say, is just as good, really.
Hello, sir. Hello, everybody. Yes, the south of France, beautiful weather conditions, glorious circuit, incredibly entertaining environment, versus my office in Sheffield. Yes, this is a much better place to be, Jazz. But no, thanks very much for the intro, man. Great to be here. Hello, everybody, on the big wide world of the internet. And yeah, touring car racing. Me likey, me like. Brands Hatch as well. Not a bad combination to end the year.
Not at all. It's going to be a wonderful night of racing. And let's not forget that the championship has already been wrapped up here. Matt Richards is the champion, basically. Dan Kell, unfortunately, not going to be here this evening to be racing with us, which is a big shame, but at the end of the day, we all know that real life comes first when it comes to sim racing.
No,
and of course, well, might not do, but
sim racing always comes first. lack of commitment banned for next season.
Oh, that's it. I will not be returning to a box. But still, we were discussing it before we went live that this is going to be a bit of gloves off racing now for these drivers, isn't it? They're just going to be able to go all gung-ho and entertain us for 3 races this evening.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, touring car racing, you know all about it in a real and a virtual world. It is get your elbows out. If you come into the pits at the end of the race and you've still got wing mirrors, that you're doing something wrong. But now, this is literally 3 races where you can just celebrate the joy of doing what we do. The drivers are all well-versed in what these cars can do. They're used to each other. They're used to the championship. It's going to be fantastic, man. I absolutely can't wait. And hopefully, to a degree, everybody behaves, and let's not get silly out on the racetrack, but I do expect to see a few smiles and a few tears come that there checkered flag.
To be honest with you. But yes, it is going to be a great finale. There are the gorgeous machines that have competed throughout this season. We've had some amazing looking liveries on the grid, and we will continue to do so into this final round. Now, Johannes Lepit in the number 40 Subaru Livorg on the right-hand side there is one of the liveries that really catches my eye. And to be honest with you, he's quite an entertaining bloke because he's just popped into the Discord and said, I don't think words can describe how much I despise the rain, because it is raining here at Brands Hatch for this finale. So a lot of the drivers are going to have to be very careful, particularly those in rear-wheel drive cars as well, Paul, because that's where they really do come up to a disadvantage with getting the traction down out of corners, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think we've said it's the last event of the season, the last 3 races of the season. Brands Hatch Grand Prix is a difficult circuit at the best of times, and with a bit of wet stuff down there, this is going to be a case, Chaz, 100% of survival. It's not about who's going to be quickest. It's not about who can tear away at the front of the field. It's stay on the grey stuff as much as possible, minimise your mistakes, keep out of trouble. If you're not at the sharp end of the grid, come green flag, then just keep out of other people's problems and try and get yourself to the checkered flag. And if you can do that, which is easier said than done, you've got a damn good chance of getting yourself in that kind of like top 6, top 8 kind of region. And I love me some touring cars, but in this kind of field, in rain, you can keep it. I'm not interested. Too hard.
Yeah, well, I always say to people, Paul, there's a reason I'm a commentator and not a driver. So here we go then. Look at that, 1,000th of a second between the top 2 spots. Daniel Hurlock in the RSR Astra taking pole position from YouTube's John Munro, as he's known. Ross McGregor, second row, with Matt Richards, newly crowned champion for Airstream Motorsport, I should say. Chris Shepherd and Chris Butcher make it an all-Chris row 3. Thomas Vack is on the fourth row alongside Phil Morby. And then behind him, two teammates from Wilsman Racing. That's Callum Wilson and Jakub Kowalski in 10th position, about 1.5 seconds from the top spot. Dan Hyde next in the Go for the Gap Racing Toyota Corolla. He's alongside Dan Hutt in the Subaru Levorg. Then we have Stefan McCready and Ben Willis in the Drake Racing Machine. Then it's Cam Brewster and Johannes Leppit on row 8. Sam Dowman and Scott Morris round out our field. But 1,000th of a second is, well, that's what's displayed on our side of things. John Munro has actually just messaged me and he said we're actually separated in the sim by 0.001 of a second. Identical times, Paul. And again, just shows us how close touring car racing can be. And we've not even got underway yet.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible stuff. And if that's not an early warning sign that we're going to have ourselves a whole load of good fun this afternoon, I don't know what is. I will just say though, Chaz, massive props to you, good sir, for being able to pick out the car models on that screen. Maybe I'm sat too far away from the screen, maybe I'm too old nowadays, but I could not make out what those models were. So good eyeballs there, young Mr. Draycott, showing up the old man here as we're seeing just how wet it is on the racetrack. And make no mistake, look how squirrely that car is under acceleration. These conditions are going to be a massive test for these drivers, aren't they?
They really are, and I have to compliment the way that the rain looks in R-Factor 2 as well. The sort of slight dry line behind the car as it carves its way through the water, the reflections on the surface as well, really does look tasty indeed. And you can see the wiper there going absolutely bonkers. I think the only time I've ever seen sort of motors go quicker than that, it was on something in Robot Wars, to be honest. Cam Brewster in a rear-wheel drive car, you can see it trying to break away there. He's going to be gliding his way around, but we've seen a number of season finales at Brands Hatch in the real world British Touring Car Championship that have been affected by rain as well, haven't we? So it's true to form.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to sort of level things up a little bit for the last race. It's good that there's no real championship charges. Look how difficult it is on this outlap. Now, in a touring car, in R-Factor 2, the tyre model is obviously incredibly detailed in the same. I work for R-Factor 2, go to Steam and buy it now. But the way that it affects these touring cars, you've got 1 or 2 laps, especially in rear-wheel drive, where you need to get a bit of a tyre warm-up anyway, regardless of the weather conditions. Added into the fact that the track temperature and the ambient temperature is a lot colder, the circuit is, as you can well see, completely sodden with water. This, Chaz, for the opening 2 or 3 laps, I expect to see the front-wheel drive cars in the ascendancy, just until the rear-wheel drive cars start to get a little bit more grip underneath them and start to make their way forwards as the race kind of unfolds. But it's going to have an interesting impact on tyre longevity as well, I think. We know that the front left is often limited in terms of how much meat you've got left on the tyre in dry. But in wet conditions, that's going to even out a little bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even last time out at Silverstone, the weather, well, it wasn't raining all the way through, but by the end of the race, there was a dry line emerging, and there were drivers that were so much quicker than others as the race went on. And to be honest, I think, based on how heavy the rain is here, we might not see a repeat of that, but it can very quickly die down, so we'll have to see. Herlock and Butcher are very close for P2 in the Drivers' Championship, I'm told by Matt Richards, so we need to keep an eye on them. There was only about 12 points between the two of them, and bearing in mind you can get a maximum of 22 in each race when you get fastest lap as well, and of course you can get all sorts of points from all sorts of places. I think we're in for an absolute treat, really, with the championship protagonists when it comes to the end. But I mean, look at the way that even the front-wheel drive cars are dancing around here as they have that horrible front-wheel drive understeer as they're on the power. It's incredible, isn't it?
You need to win an award for the most insightful commentary comment I've ever heard in my life. You can get all sorts of points from all sorts of places.
Oh yeah. Well,
beautiful. Really putting the audience in the scene, making it feel as though they're trackside with us.
Well, that's it. I was looking all up and down the point standings to see if you actually get 20 points for winning a race, or whether it's 21, because nobody's ever got less than 21 for winning a race. So I'm pretty sure it is 21, and then you get... Well, someone's got 23 here, right? Someone's pulling my leg. But honestly, it's just... Well, it's one of them where I love the fact that you can get extra points. That's what can make it so interesting. And over the course of a race, that can develop. We've seen it before with fastest lap points in certain championships, and points even for leading a lap as well. That can really throw the cat amongst the pigeons, because even if you just lead the one, then that is an extra point overall. So I'm excited to see whether any of that comes into play as well, to be honest with you. Interesting to see how the water is being affected by that wiper blade there. Clearly set off in a different direction for Dan Hyde, but anyone but Dan, to be honest with you.
We'll pretend we've not seen that little graphical glitch, and it's not representative of the R-Factor 2 software. Please ignore.
It's just Dan Hyde things. If Dan can find a way of doing something, he'll do it, bless him. This is another Dan that we need to keep our eye on, though, the RSR Vauxhall Astra. It's one of the prettiest cars on the grid, if you ask me. It looks stunning.
It's invisible. It's got a cloaking device. That's cheating.
That was pretty. Well, I'll tell you what. It's certainly one way to slide under the radar. There's some more wonderful footage of Paddock Hill Bend, a very terrifying corner. Of course, this is B-roll footage, so this is not the current conditions in the sim, but a lovely shot there of such a menacing corner. I was at Brands Hatch just a couple of weeks ago, and every single time I go there, I can never believe quite how steep that corner is. And the fact that it has remained like that for so long, because that's what we're treated to in the UK, really, Paul, is the fact that we've got so many of these amazing old school circuits, and fundamentally, over the years, they haven't changed that much, to be fair. They still have all their legendary corners, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. We are quite fortunate, as you say, in the United Kingdom. We've got Silverstone, which is the home to the British Grand Prix, so that's kind of progressed over time to accommodate the various requirements at top level open wheel racing. But we have an absolute wealth of national racetracks that host international meetings, of course, but circuits like Brands Hatch, like Donington Park and Croft, etc., where they stay very, very true to their original format, from sometimes dated all the way back to sort of like the 1930s, 1940s, and after the onset of war completed and the airfields were taken back over, reclaimed from the military to be racetracks. So we are very, very fortunate in that regard, and it does lead to some legendary corners and some absolutely unique and incredible circuits. There are a few countries where you can have a corner like this, Paddock Hill Bend at Brands Hatch, and then go to somewhere like Knock Hill that's 400 yards maximum, uphill, down Dale, over Grims. Really, we're very lucky in that regard.
We are indeed, absolutely. And to be honest, I think Brands Hatch is one of the finest circuits that our beautiful little island has to offer. We'll quickly run back through the grid. We've got Daniel Hurlock and John Munro on the front row, with Ross McGregor and Matt Richards on row 2. Chris Butcher and Thomas Vack are on row 3. Then it's Phil Morby and Callum Wilson, 7th and 8th. Jakub Kowalski and Dan Hyde round out the top 10. And then on row 6, we have Dan Hutt and Stefan McCready. Ben Willis and Cam Brewster are the two teammates next up in 13th and 14th, with Johannes Leppit alongside Sam Dowman. Chris Shepherd and Scott Morris make up the back of the grid. So now everybody just making their way around on the warm-up lap. The spray is immense as well, and that's another thing that they need to consider, is that it may not be the most prominent thing in the sim sometimes, but to be honest with you, I think it's amazing that the spray is so thick in a sim like this, because a lot of them, they pussyfoot around it a little bit, don't they? They don't want spray to be too much of a thing, because everyone has to think about graphics cards and how hot they're going to get. But to be honest with you, when it does affect visibility as much as it does here, you have to applaud the fact that it is so realistic in that way, because we have the ability in the sim to turn things like that down, and it means that you can see better, but realistically, I don't think you should be able to. It's great that it does affect them so much, isn't it?
It is, and it took us long enough, but now the rain spray is rain spray coloured rather than grey, which was massively frustrating as an employee of Studio 397, but we fixed it, and it now actually looks like rain spray, which is great. And yeah, I love me some wet conditions, I must say, and it's like I say, it's a leveller amongst teams, cars and drivers, and it adds a little bit of spice, which is never a bad thing, old chap.
Not at all. And we're looking here at Scott Morris in the TR powered by Geeks Energy Subaru Levorg, and he's been around on this formation lap. He's had a bit of a spin up at Sheen Curve, and he's going to make his way now onto his grid spot. And the final spot is taken, and the first race of the night is about to get underway in the VMO TCUK from Brands Hatch Grand Prix Circuit. And the revs will rise, as indeed will mine. The front-wheel drive cars struggle off the line, but look at Matt Richards in the BMW from 4th on the grid, straight to the front, through the middle, past John Munro, past Ross McGregor, and of course, past Dan Hurlock. Dan now defending from John Munro, as sideways in the background goes his RSR teammate Thomas Fack, very, very sideways. We look there at Chris Butcher in the THR car, who's made his way up into 5th position now, up towards Druids. Everybody tiptoeing their way up there. The circuit goes away from you very suddenly at the apex, and then you try and get back on the power downhill, and the car's got no grip. Phil Morby there in 6th place in the horrendously liveried Ford Ota, I think he called it, or the Ford Yota. It's basically a Toyota Corolla livery that he's done for a Ford Focus. But Butcher now around the outside of Ross McGregor, side by side off Surtees. This is a scary part of the circuit now to be side by side, isn't it, Paul? They've managed to sort it out.
Yeah, good, clean start from everybody. That's 18 drivers that can now unpucker their sphincters. We've got through the first few corners in these unbelievably difficult conditions. Coming for a little look round Westfield Bend as well, sideways for one of the Fords in the back of our shot. A few drivers have got their lights ablaze. Not really going to make any difference in these conditions, but it's more to put the scarers on the car in front of you. Just let you know that you are charging forward. Ben Willis down in 14th position, still trying to get heat in the tyres of that rear-wheel drive machine, as we mentioned at the top of the show. There's a yellow flag charge in Sector 2. Somebody, there we go, has gone to say hello to the green grass, but we'll get back again without too much harm or foul.
Yeah, Callum Wilson having a bit of an issue in the Infinity, unfortunately. Aidan Millward is in the Discord, and he's one of the stewards for this championship, and he's just messaged in the chat saying, Matt, that start was absolutely disgusting. You are disqualified for being Colin Turkington. And it was honestly a very disgusting start indeed. It actually reminds me, I'm not sure if you remember, Paul, I know your BTCC knowledge is very strong though, Stephen Jelly got an incredible start a few years ago as well. Well, that's not the best start for John Munro. He's off into the gravel and back on again. Well, it was Stephen Jelly in the 1 Series BMW a few years ago, the final meeting of BTCC, I'm pretty sure it was, and he got an absolute cracker of a start. Probably one of the best starts I've ever seen, and I think he went from 6th to 1st before they got to Paddock Hill Bend. I'm not quite sure if I've got that right or not, but honestly, if we could ever have a look at it, I'm going to try and find it later on. But right now, we've got the two Zansho Simsport Focuses having a good old scrap there with Butchie behind them. And now we've got Johannes Leppert, who really hates the rain, as he said before. And I'm not surprised. He's in an absolute boat of a Levorg, to be honest. As whoa, there goes his teammate just behind. And, well, it resembles a cruise ship, doesn't it, at the best of times, the Levorg. But it really is doing a good impression of it right now.
Yeah, docked into the barriers, let off passengers, and we'll get back on the racetrack. Good to see the Subaru Levorg racing here in the VMO TCUK Championship. Shame it's not quite as strong as they would hope it to be at this stage. Much like the real car, started competitive, then plummeted like a stone, and unfortunately, same things happening here in these wet conditions. Chris Butcher, 4th position, so far having a good drive. And again, I said at the start of the show, I expect the rear-wheel drive cars to take a little while to come into the road. Matt Richards making me a complete and utter liar on that one. Got to the front of the grid, as you would expect from a rear-wheel drive. They're lightning off of the line, and he seems to be quite comfortable ahead of Dan Hurlock at this moment in time. Half a second advantage, but crucially, clean track in front of him. Downside to that one, Chaz, as you well know, racing in the rain, if you're at the front, yes, you've got a clean windshield, yes, you can see where you're going, but you're the first one into the conditions as well. As the second place man, all you need to do is mirror it, and you've got that safety net. So, difficult position for Richards to be in, but the longer he holds on, the more that BMW will start to come on song, and the more comfortable he'll become.
Yeah, definitely. But right behind him, though, now, Daniel Hurlock has taken a couple of tenths out of him. And to be honest, Hurlock is a man on a mission here because he's got a championship position to fight for. He and Butcher will both overtake Dan Kell in the championship as long as they just score some points this evening. They can definitely jump him. They're only 9 points behind, really, coming into this one. So even in this race, they'll do that. But Hurlock wants to make sure he's got as many positions under his belt as he can get because Chris Butcher, in 4th place in this race at the moment, is only a couple of positions back, so he's having to do a bit of damage limitation, but he may feel a bit of pressure to try and move forward past Ross McGregor, so I'm intrigued to see how that fight goes. He's the filling in a Zansho breaded sandwich at the moment, but Daniel Hurlock on the headlights, he's flashing the lights now, he's telling Matt Richards, look, I'm on my way here, I'm on my way in this wonderful Astra. I still think the Astra is one of the best looking NGTC cars there's ever been. It's such a beefy bit of kit. But you can see Richards is having a bit of a wiggle around. He might be struggling slightly. But, I mean, all the guys in the championship know that he's got that BMW wrapped around his little finger. Everyone really praises him for how well he drives it. And John Munro, well, he's in the Ford Focus right now, right behind Butcher for 4th place. And to be honest, this is not what Butchie needs. He doesn't want to be under pressure, does he?
No, absolutely not. You don't need any kind of car to be harrying the rear of you. Again, in these conditions, it's so easy to snatch a break. It's so easy to be a little bit later on the middle pedal, coming into a corner and then catch your rival in front of you. And light contact in a touring car often leads to big mistakes. So John Munro now is very much the man that's he's in the prime position to try and make a move as Herlock again looking to there. Is this opposite day? I am sure I've just said the BMW is going to get stronger. And what does he go and do? Starts dropping back. This is becoming moderately irritating, and we've only got lap 4 of 15 and there's 3 races to go. I am not making predictions, but I will say, look at that flashy light. That's something new in our Factor 2. It took us 15 years, but we got there. Flashy lights at last, as we see in Herlock now. That car looks so much stronger than the BMW. Look how he can get it into the corner. So much tighter. The BMW's flirting with the outside of the racetrack, scrabbling for grip. He can't apply too much lock, can Richards, otherwise the rear's going to try and overtake it. There you see, sideways through the corner, but Herlock much more stable, the nose much more positive, the rear much more planted as well. That allows him to get onto the throttle earlier. That allows him to take a tighter corner as well. It all compounds and adds extra benefit. Dan Herlock is looking like a man that's going to be making an overtake in the next couple of moments if he's not too careful. Richards under all the pressure in the world, which means, Chaz, he'll take a 10-second lead in the next 5 minutes because I just said that.
Yeah, that's it. It is almost like a commentator's curse, but sort of like a reverse psychology.
No, it's an idiot's observation is what I call it. It's not a commentator's curse. It's someone that talks like with no knowledge. That's me.
Well, I've just seen a message in the Discord from Aidan Millward saying to Dan Herlock and anyone else that may be doing it throughout the field, don't flash your lights behind a car when there's no reason to. So obviously he's referring to the fact that, I would have thought the same as well. Richards hits the damp patch and the compression at the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend. Herlock is suddenly down the inside, hurls it down the inside, you could say. And now Richards is dancing his way around Druids. There's a tiny touch on the exit and they just get away with it. That's the beauty of touring car racing, though. These cars can really lean on each other and get away with it. And Daniel Herlock takes the race lead right now. And look at this now. This is John Munro on the back of Chris Butcher. Butchie goes through at Druids, but now John gets the cutback on him. Behind them in 6th position, we've got Thomas Vack in the other RSR Astra. Now that is important because he's teammates with race leader Daniel Herlock, who is in a fight in the championship with Chris Butcher. So if Vack can put him off now and take at least a couple of points away from him by overtaking Butchie, then that is his job done as a teammate. So it's going to be intriguing to see how this goes, because he was sideways through Paddock Hill Bend at the start, but he's clearly got the pace to catch up to and stick with these guys in front.
Yeah, Thomas Vack needs to get a bit of a shake on now, or a shake and Vack, some might say, in 6th position as he's chasing down Butcher. And you're absolutely right, that is a beautiful looking Astra in the British Touring Car Championship. An old model now, one of the oldest models still in active competition. Possibly we may no longer see that one running in 2023 in the real world. Be a real shame Power Max Racing run that car with some success in recent years. I think Jason Plato in 2019 was the last one to take the checkered flag first for his 97th British Touring Car Championship win. But the recent economic downturn and the pandemic disruptions not been kind to Power Max Racing, and they've fallen down the grid in recent seasons. In fact, not even making a full championship campaign back in, was it 2020 they did a part season? So Power Max on the back foot a little bit, but it's looking resplendent in virtual form, as now Matt Richards, former race leader, the Rocket Man on the checkered flag, his 3rd position as Ross McGregor for the Zanshow car sneaks his way up into 2nd. So front wheel drive 1 and 2.
And this is how he did it as well. Nicely queued up, Ross McGregor just down the inside. Matt gives him all the space in the world. Oh, he touches the painted surface on the left-hand side, though, and it just floats the car a little bit wide. And that must have been a very scary experience for Richards there, because when you're trying to turn into Paddock Hill Bend and nothing happens, that's probably the worst place in the world for nothing to happen. Now this, behind the other RSR Astra is, well, another one. We're actually looking at Phil Morby in the number 14 team at Ghani, which is all the gear and no idea, with Big Fan Esports in this blue and red thing. He's now got Chris Shepherd.
You know when you
right
said
front.
at the beginning of the show, oh, look at the Spotter's Guide, there's some beautiful liveries. Where? I haven't seen any yet. Where are these beautiful liveries? This is actually, it's borderline offensive how awful this field looks. But no, there's definitely some curious choices there, I must say. I am being light-hearted, of course. If anybody watches this bike that's racing, don't come and beat me down. I jest you all, but yes, they are ugly cars. But
he's not guilty, Your Honour.
Yeah, not guilty. It was Chaz.
Oh, right.
Blame it on Chaz.
Oh, right. I'm suddenly a witness turned victim now.
Yeah.
Right. Back to Ross McGregor at the front, and he is starting to close in a little bit on Daniel Hurlock. He's keeping him honest at this stage. Ross isn't really in with a massive championship shout outright because he's on 227 points going into this. He won the third race at Silverstone last time out. An amazing performance it was as well. But he's some 62 points behind Dan Hurlock coming into this meeting, so he can't affect him in the championship now. But at the end of the day, he can still try and take some points away for everybody else, and that's what he's going to do in the Ford Focus. He sticks it nice and tight down the inside of Surtees. Such a painful corner, even in the dry, isn't it, Paul? So to try and get it done in the wet, especially in a front-wheel drive car, where the front end just wants to magnetise itself towards the nearest fence, it can be a very, very painful thing to guide a car like the Focus around here.
Oh, absolutely. Torque steer is a major thing that you have to deal with in these cars. As we're just watching McGregor, the little moment then, Hurlock ran wide, managed to keep his foot in and keep it on the track. But that's a little chink in the armour that Ross McGregor will be laser focusing in on. But yeah, back to Surtees, it's a dreadful corner. It seems to go on forever. You never quite know where you need to turn the car in to get back on the throttle, and with the wet conditions, and as you say, with the torque steer as well, so difficult to balance the car, and that's only going to get more difficult, Chaz, as the race progresses, as tyres start to wear. The track is dynamic, of course, so the level of rainfall and the level of grip available to you will be changing as well. And yeah, it's all of these things that were talked about in terms of mixing things up for these drivers. As I can smell fried chicken. So my wife and son have just come home and they brought fried chicken. Thanks very much for someone who's not had any dinner. I always enjoy it when that happens. I'll go downstairs at the end of the broadcast and be like, "What's for dinner, love?" And I will get a less polite version of, "Make it yourself, sweetheart."
I thought there was going to be some sort of clever link to Stephen McCready or his livery or something.
No, I wasn't
expecting
intelligent enough to try that. Sorry, it wafted into my nostrils and irritated me. But Stephen McCready is doing a good job, back on topic, so well done, lad, carry on.
He's really closing in on the car in front as well, which is Jakub Kowalski in another Infiniti as well, so equal machinery for these two drivers. It's Wilsman Racing ahead of Pixelate Esports. And you can see still they're floating their way around, and even in the background, Dan Hutt in the Subaru Levorg completely hanging the back end out on the exit of Druids. It's great to see. And even there, look, Stefan's almost in a straight line and he's getting on the power, and the Infiniti is trying to turn hard left. All of a sudden, Matt Richards finds himself behind another Zansho Focus. Now, Matt does technically drive for Zansho. He is part of the Zansho Simsport group, and he's just running basically his own independent livery in this championship, the Aerostream Motorsport BMW, doing a wonderful job of it as well. He is drivers champion and independence champion so long as he wins this race. Well, so long as he finishes it, effectively, because he will outscore Dan Kell by enough by the time that the meeting's done. But he's got John Munro in front of him now, who puts another Zansho Focus onto the podium. And
doesn't everybody drive for Zansho?
Pretty much, yeah.
I think even Aidan Mildward had a go at it, so it's got to be fairly easy to get into that team.
No,
only joking, Aidan. Only joking.
He does drive for them, does Aidan? He certainly does. But we've just had a little battle go on there with Chris Butcher and Thomas Vack, and well, Vack had a go at him, but couldn't quite get the move done, unfortunately. Now he's lost a little bit of ground. He's lost a couple of car lengths, so he's got to sort of recuperate and try to just close back up again. But it seems like Butcher's just not quite got the pace here. He says that he's had a lot of other championships and commitments going on, so he's not been able to get to his ultimate pace this season, because everyone in the series knows that Butcher is so fast. A previous champion in this series as well. And he's certainly proven the point before, as we see Dan Hyde running wide, and then the car ahead, which is Cam Brewster, very sideways through Paddock Hill Bend.
We love ourselves some rainy driving in touring cars, and Brewster now, that little slide, that's really compromising for the run into Druids, and now to drop down in a Graham Hill Bend. Again, this is where you'll see the front wheel drive difference to the rear wheel drive. A lot smoother, we couldn't see, oh there we go, rear wheel drive, massive difference because he's gone cutting some grass. So Dan Hyde, easy overtake there, no problems whatsoever. Brewster needs to be a little bit back onto the racetrack, not to be collected by the eager beavers that are charging through Graham Hill Bend behind him. As once again we're looking at Thomas Vack, that is Butcher, so Butcher's position very much on the chopping block at this moment in time in 5th and 6th, but Vack is the man on the move. The little Vauxhall showing good in these weather conditions, and it just goes to show, doesn't it, different cars, different wheelbases, different sort of mentality to how the car is engineered, they all have different outcomes depending on the track and depending on the conditions, don't they?
Yeah, they've all got their own little nuances, and that's always great to see.
That's the word I was looking for.
It's not like it's just a copy and paste job underneath of the same car, and that's what we love about this. You know, every car has its own physics and its own behaviour, and to see that even in different conditions at all the different circuits, like you say very rightly, Paul, it's just wonderful. Really is it's very natural to watch as a motorsport fan. You know, we're here to simulate real racing at the end of the day, and when they do it so well, it's just a joy to watch it, and it just makes you feel like you are watching real racing. And everyone always says, and Jimmy Broadbent famously said during lockdown, of course, that the cars may not be real, but the racing is. And it's in moments like this where, well, you can't argue that he's wrong, can you? Not one bit. Thomas Vack now, though, right on the back of Chris Butcher. And, there's a car off in the background there. We have Cam Brewster on our screen there. It's Johannes Leppit that was off in the Lavorg on the exit of the final corner. He's just got back up to speed and then back down towards Paddock Hill Bend. And, well, you can see that he's tiptoeing the car around. But this battle for 5th position, very intriguing, and this is going to blow the second place battle in the championship wide open, because if Thomas can just keep the pressure on Chris Butcher and maybe force him into a mistake, it's going to give Dan Hurlock a decent points advantage. Now here's Johannes Leppit, and look at that. Ooh. He gets on the throttle one way then the other. Now I was commentating at Brands a few weeks ago, and even the trucks were doing that. The back end, when they were grabbing a gear just over that little lump in the middle of the start-finish straight, they were completely sideways, even still when they came past the commentary box. It's a terrifying bit of circuit, but everyone always forgets about it until it comes to tricky conditions, don't they?
Yeah, well, it's easy to do, isn't it? Straight line, you think you're okay, you get on the loud pedal, and then before you know it, you're kind of recovering from whatever's happened, and it's just dawned on me. The Butcher car, I'm trying to think, that livery rings a bell from somewhere. That's very DTM-esque, isn't it? Where the Opel used to race. That's where it reminds me. It kind of like accentuates the flared arches, the little blue flashings as well. So I do like that one, actually. That looks really, really quite nice indeed. And speaking of Butcher, he does seem to have dug around and found a little bit of lap time. I'd love to say that I could find the live timing link for this broadcast, but I can't, so I have to go on what I'm seeing on track. And it does seem like Butcher's starting to eke out a couple of yards advantage over Vack behind. So that'll be interesting to see if that's purely a case of circumstances. Are they going to catch up to the back of Richards and he's going to act as the cork in the bottle, or is Thomas Vack just biding his time a little bit, dropping back in order to close back up again? And in fact, Chaz, once again, because let's just make Paul look like an idiot today, as soon as I say that one, Vack closes right up to the back of Butcher once again, nullifying the last 30 seconds of mine, yours, and everybody watching's life. Sorry about that.
Well, that's just part of racing, isn't it? Absolutely is. And this is, well, it's the Newton's cradle of motorsport. Goes one way, then the other, very, very quickly, and much to our disappointment sometimes when we can see a battle in developing and then suddenly it disappears and fizzles out very quickly. But no, it's very much a trio at this point, though, I'd say, because Richards, as you see, trying to get the traction down on the exit of Sterling's, all over the grass and all over the curb, wobbling it around, and suddenly this is going to become a very difficult mental battle for Chris Butcher, because he's going to be catching the BMW thinking this is going to be a good one. I can beat him now, I can overtake him. He's having a bit of a struggle, but at the same time he cannot forget that he has Thomas Vack right behind him in his mirrors, and it's the worst case scenario to be in, isn't it, when you're trying to attack somebody while having to worry about defending as well.
Tell you what, though, that Richards BMW looks absolutely disgusting in these conditions. Absolute seesawing away at the wheel. Look at, it's never pointing in a straight line at any given time. You can see the rooster tails of spray coming back off the rear. Watch him now, coming through Graham Hill Bend. Armfuls are opposite lock. You've got to be careful on that painted curb as well. There's even less grip on there than there is on the tarmac. And Richards hemorrhaging lap time at this moment in time. The car is 1 millimetre away from some kind of mother and father of a shunt into the barriers. And if I was Butcher behind or Vac behind him, I'd be more concerned about collecting that BMW when it recovers from whatever crash it's having than trying to find a way past. And Matt Richards really showing all of the skill that we've seen this season just to keep that damn thing on the racetrack, never mind in front of his rivals. And if I was Matt Richards looking for that Independence crown, looking for that race finish, I'd be minded at this stage to maybe even think about letting these two guys past. Least something like that happens and you go all slidey, and then get caught up in a bit of a shunt. So Richards, unenviable position to find himself in at this moment in time, and that BMW is not having a fun time at all.
No, it really isn't. It's absolutely sideways everywhere. But this is the thing. Matt Richards knows how to guide this car sideways, and he has shown us that all season. There's so many people within the Discord that all say, I don't know how Matt drives that car like that. He's learned it so well. He's mastered it. But he's a really good drifter over on another sim as well. I don't want to offend you, Paul, so I'm not going to mention it. But he's a very good drifter.
There is only our factor.
He's a very good drifter, though, is Matt Richards. And anyone that has him on their social media will know that he posts quite a few stories and videos and all sorts of some of his drifting sessions, and it is very impressive, I have to say. And I know that he used to do quite a lot of it. I'm pretty sure he still does as well, on a Formula rim as well, so it's not even on a completely round wheel, and that's the most bonkers thing. But still, this trio is together for 4th, 5th and 6th. Matt Richards, Chris Butcher and Thomas Vac. But this is your race leader, Daniel Hurlock. Only a couple of laps left to go. He's got a comfortable 1.3 second margin, nearly 1.4 over John Munro. But let's not forget, actually, John Munro has overtaken Ross McGregor throughout this race. So he sort of relinquished his position to say to John, right, go fetch, get him, go chase him down, Shep. And to be honest, he's made a lot of ground if you consider the fact he was a few seconds behind McGregor before. If John keeps this pace up, the last couple of laps could be very interesting. Although I say that, McGregor did a personal... No, he didn't do a purple lap last time around, but Richards is at a purple sector too. There we go.
Where are you finding this information, Chaz? Ping me on Discord.
I've sent you a link. I've sent you a link to it.
Oh, superb. And so Chris Butcher, still pretending that he's driving in the Andros Trophy, has managed to kind of like arrest that slide somewhat now. So he's not quite under immediate pressure. If you're Chris Butcher, what do you do? Are you happy with 5th position and concentrate on what's happening behind and see if any gifts come your way, or do you just give it everything at this stage and try and put pressure on the BMW in front, but put yourself in that risk area? Ooh, there we go again, slidey.
Well, I think in these conditions it's hard to give it everything because you might just compromise yourself as Butcher goes down the inside of Richards. There is contact. I think the gap was there. Butcher certainly manufactured one. Richards is now back down the inside, and they're side by side into Graham Hill Bend. Butcher's going to try and get the cut back here. Look at that. He's on the throttle early. Matt can't get on it as early. He's sideways. Chris backs out of it to make sure he doesn't go into the side of the BMW. It may be a 5-door, but he could very quickly make it a 3-door. As now we go on to the front bumper. Well, we go on the roof, sorry, of the Astra. And I'm sure that right behind us, Thomas Vac is going to be there as well. Fantastic chase now down Pilgrim's Drop, an iconic piece of racing circuit. You can see the spray in the cars up ahead. That's Ross McGregor. He's a few seconds clear of this lot now. But Chris Butcher, well, he's just watching this BMW dance around in the rain. I have to bring your attention as well to the lead battle, which is now just under a second between Dan Hurlock and John Munro. It's flirting around sort of 8 to 9 tenths of a second. And there you see it in the bottom right of your screen. Thank God for picture-in-picture, and thank God for Mike Yao. He's a wonderful man. But we have this great pair of battles on our screen now. But again, because Vac has got 2 cars in front of him, the spray at certain points is a lot thicker than you'd imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. The camera doesn't do it justice, I think, on this screen. It's a lot stronger when you're actually in cockpit in the race itself. And I'm interested now, as you say, the Hurlock-Munro fight in the picture-in-picture in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Is this what we were talking about, Chaz? Is this tyre drop-off? And you see Munro maybe has got slightly better conditioned tyres than Hurlock has coming into this final lap, and these three have basically got no tyres whatsoever. Everybody's slipping and sliding. This is where, this is like NASCAR, isn't it? The first 14 laps are just positioning. This is the one that counts. Yeah,
absolutely. And at the end of the day, you can get points for leading laps and so on in certain championships, but none of them really matter if you don't take the win at the end. There is one lap that's the most important one to lead, as we say, and John Munro wants to make sure that he is the first man across the line now, regardless of how many laps Dan Hurlock has led up to this point. This battle is going to come right down to the wire. It was 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds not too long ago. But now it's less than 3/4 of a second. Slipstream's not going to be humongous between these two cars as well. So that's not really going to be something that John can use to his advantage through Westfield once more. But look, he's really attacking it. You can just see it in the way that they're driving as well. Hurlock is sort of guiding the car home. John's just going all gung-ho to try and get a position. A few more corners to go now, Paul.
Uh-oh, and some lap traffic in front as well. Oh. There we go, lap traffic. Goes and says hello to the barriers. That's that one sorted out, although John Munro has a little bit of a code brown as he comes back on the racetrack, and it's all over and done with, Chaz. Over to you to do the shouty-shouties as they cross the line.
Well, he took a race victory last time out as well when we were at the very, very wonderful... No, he didn't. Shut up, Chaz. He took 2 second places at Silverstone. I thought it was in, but it wasn't. Dan Hurlock, though, flashes the lights, takes the win at Brands Hatch, and he needs that for second in the championship. He will be a very happy boy. Matt Richards decimates Butcher and Vac on the final lap. Butcher comes home in 5th place. Vac is 6th, but it's McGregor and Munro who complete the podium. A wonderful Scottish Zancho pairing on the podium here at Brands Hatch. And now we watch Dan Hutt, who is all over the back of Dan Hyde in front in the Go for the Gap Racing Toyota Corolla. The two of them, as you can see, both really struggling in their own way around Stirling's Bend in towards Clearways. Now, Paul, does he go for it?
Oh, why not? It's last lap, sunshine. Have a go. Too far back on this occasion. But maybe a little kiss, a touring car kiss through the final corner. Not quite. A bit of a squabble back on the power. Oh, there we go. Go for a sideways squabble. And nearly go and get some autographs in the crowd, but just about holds on. And a quick one to mention, Jazz, Munro very kindly conceded position to McGregor on the final lap, the final turn.
Yes.
Get Ross back up into second position. So, bit of team play there from Zancho. At least somebody's taking this seriously.
Well,
certainly not us two.
I was going to say, I was that focused on the fact that I got it wrong that Daniel Hurlock won a race at Silverstone that I didn't even realise that I saw John had slowed down, but it didn't cross my mind that what he was doing. So nicely picked up.
Assuming he's done that one, he's not just dropped it in the final corner. I think he did look as though he was under control, and it was a deliberate ploy to exchange positions there.
Yeah, he did a very good job of it indeed. It was a wonderful, wonderful manoeuvre, and that's what team play is all about, isn't it? At the end of the day, the two of them doing very, very well together throughout that race. They didn't quite have the start they would have wanted, but they recovered. Johannes Leppit does finish the race despite his massive hatred of wet weather, and instantly flings the car back to the garage, gets under as much cover as possible, and well, that is that is just how you do it. Aidan has messaged in Discord saying, somebody clip that returning of the position and send it to Max Verstappen. I like that. To be honest, I'm actually a bit fed up of everybody sharing the whole Lewis and Valtteri thing at Hungary, saying, look, this is how you do it. It's just one of them things that people aren't dropping. Anyway, we'll gloss over that because
touring cars way more fun than Formula One.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Always. Absolutely. There is your race result, and Daniel Hurlock wins the race by 4 seconds over Ross McGregor. John Munro relinquishes the position to his teammate and finishes in third. Matt Richards holds on to 4th place after the pressure from Chris Butcher and Thomas Vac. And I tell you what, hats off to Chris Butcher as well for holding 5th. What a race he had. Chris Shepherd finished 7th ahead of Phil Morby in 8th, with Dan Hyde and Dan Hutt rounding out the top 10. Those two, I think Dan Hutt was 24 seconds off the lead. Shows you how much it spread out actually throughout that race. 11th place went the way of Callum Wilson. He was 25 and a bit seconds off the lead. He was ahead of Cam Brewster, who finished in 12th. And it was Jakub Kowalski, Stefan McCready, Johannes Leppit was the last car to finish the race. And then Sam Dowman was 2 laps down, and Ben Willis and Scott Morris did not finish the race.
Well, I will say, Mr. Draycott, I doff my virtual cap to those drivers, despite the temptation to go bonkers and the difficult conditions in which to do it in. Some very nice driving indeed from the entirety of the field. Everybody kept it under control. We saw some good sideways action. A few people went scenery spotting, but just in overall, very nice. My first exposure to this year championship, and I come away from race one rather impressed. Good driving throughout.
Yeah, that's it. It's always good fun in this championship. It's always very, very clean indeed. And
oh, Jazz, we've lost you. Jazz Draycott, where far art thou, young man? He's unplugged his microphone, ladies and gents. Right.
Oh.
We'll be back in a few moments' time while Jazz unplugs and replugs things back in. Back again in 10 minutes for race 2, round 10, Brands Hatch Grand Prix of the TCUK 2022 Championship. See you in a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Looking sexy, looking fly. Come on, baby, dry your eyes.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the VMO TCUK Championship finale here at Brands Hatch on the wonderful R Factor 2. Chaz Draycott and Paul Jeffrey here in the commentary box with the wonderful Mike Yao on production as well. And well, boys, we've had a wonderful first race tonight in very tricky conditions, but it's looking a little bit better now, Paul, to be honest. And I think the guys are maybe not going to have such a bad time with this one.
Yeah, there's still a bit of rainfall in the air, it seems. You can see the puddle just past the start-finish line, is twinkling away as the wet stuff falls from that there sky. But it may be a tad drier than we saw in race one. But importantly, especially for drivers at this kind of level, they've been in those conditions in a race scenario. So now it's a bit more of a known quantity, Chaz, and that's going to really, really help their understanding of how to attack this race, how their car behaves over the stint, and any opportunity they may or may not have had just to do a couple of tweaks to the setup of the car as well to react better to what's in front of them. And look, there we go. This is round number 12 of Paul Tells Lies on broadcasts. It's not better at all. It's exactly the same. He's throwing it down in Kent, which is, yeah, I'm going to stop observing things. In fact, I'm going to stop commentating altogether. Chaz, over to you.
Well, it rains a lot in Kent, I've been told. It rained every time I've been there for the last few times. But yes, we still have very tricky conditions out there then, and the grid is the same as it was for the first race results. Basically, it's the same. The grid is based on race one's result. There you go. Get it out, Chaz. Daniel Hurlock then on pole position. Ross McGregor alongside him on the front row. John Munro and Matt Richards make up row 2. Chris Butcher and Thomas Vack are 5th and 6th. 7th place is going to be Chris Shepherd with Phil Morby in 8th. Dan Hyde is going to be 9th ahead of Dan Hutt in 10th position. Callum Wilson 11th with Cam Brewster alongside him. Then we have Jakob Kowalski and Stefan McCready on row 7. Next up is Johannes Lepit in 15th position. Sam Dowman is 16th, and Ben Willis will round out the field. Series admin as well, so definitely no bias here. Apologies for the little connection issue I had before. During the break, I consulted my partner onto why, because usually it's her fault. And basically, our internet is that fickle that whenever she takes a picture or a video on her phone, i.e. the picture of my son, who happened to be reading his own bedtime story in a Scottish accent when I went upstairs, when it uploads that video to Google Photos, obviously that affects our bandwidth, and so I disconnect for about a second. Pathetic.
Chaz Draycott live from 1993.
Yeah, that's my internet. Honestly, anyone that knows me from any of my broadcasting of other sims that I've done, it's the same. You know, for about a year, and Michael testified to this as well, our producer, when we first started working together, we could never figure out why I kept having random disconnections. Every time my partner takes a picture on her phone or has it linked up to Google Photos, or whenever it does an hourly upload or a sort of synchronization or whatever, it used to start doing that, and it used to kick me off the internet as well. Hello, Ben Willis has kicked himself off the circuit in the Infinity, one way then the other.
Infinity and beyond.
Yeah, Infinity and beyond the white line. Yeah, not the best moment there, but based on what you saw in the first race, Paul, any predictions for race winner in this one, mate?
Predictions for race winner, no, but I expect carnage. Carnage at the end of the first lap.
Sound like Craig Charles in Robot Wars Extreme. Right then, Daniel Hurlock then starting from pole position. Ross McGregor alongside him. Watch that black BMW on the right-hand side of your screen, because Matt Richards is going to do it again. 4th place all the way to the front. It is identical to race one. A lovely start by Matt Richards. That is remarkable. Ross McGregor going around the outside of John Munro, side by side they go. And he just about makes it, does he? They're still side by side. Chris Butcher's in there as well. They all try not to make contact. Thomas Vack is trying to go down the inside as well. Behind them, it looks like a nice start for Phil Morby. Even the focuses are sideways as they go down the hill as well. Ben Willis has shoved one of the Go for the Gap racing machines. I think that was Dan Hyde. He's the only one. So he goes around in the Corolla. He's had a nightmare start. He was inside the top 10. Everybody else in the field, by the look of it, has got away with it and not dropped position. Sam Dowman is the last car that isn't Dan Hyde at this moment in time. Not that that's a statistic you should ever repeat. But Matt Richards straight to the front once again, Paul. Amazing start.
Yeah, really good start at the front of the field. Credit to Ben Willis as well. He didn't get him first time, second time or third time, but fourth time was a charm to spin round his rival. And Willis is now in 14th position. We're looking at Chris Buescher, this moment in time in the THR car. 5th position just ahead of him is John Munro, and there is Daniel Hyde looking to make a recovery in the beautiful little Toyota Corolla. Not quite enough of an overlap on Sam Dowman at this moment in time. Outside didn't work, the inside will do the job nicely, thank you very much indeed. And Daniel Hyde's recovery begins here and now as Ross McGregor getting some dramas on the front of the field.
Yeah, he's really putting, well, I was going to say he's putting Herlock under pressure, but it's the other way around, isn't it? Herlock is putting him under pressure, and even there, through clearways, you can see those Ford Focuses dancing sideways, just floating the rear end around the last corner, and, well, just about gets away with it, and Ross McGregor actually makes up a few car lengths down start-finish straight. Here's Chris Butcher in 5th place, as he was for pretty much all of that first race. He's going to be hoping that he can move forward in this one. He's got John Munro right in front of him, John going this way and that way, Chris trying to dance around on the gearbox, or well, it wouldn't be the gearbox, would it, and the Focus. It's front-wheel drive, so shut up, Chaz. Again, this is what you're on about before, Paul, someone talking with no knowledge. But I'm so used to saying that they're dancing around on the gearbox with like open wheel cars and GT cars and things, but of course it would be at the front of the Focus, so hopefully he's not dancing around the gearbox.
Well, it's
right
a Ford, so he's dancing around on the really cheap plastic trim that falls off when you don't touch it. That's the way you can look at it. He's dancing around on the really cost-effective one-size-fits-every car in their model range plastic. There you go.
I remember seeing a car sticker once on someone's modified Renault, I think it was, and it said, "What do you mean snap on? It's French, so it's snap off." Just brilliant. Here's Dan Hott. Hopefully this car doesn't snap off the road, but he's in 12th position at the moment, and it is like guiding a cruise ship round. Oh, well, then again, it could be worse. It could be in the Infinity in the background, just dancing its way off the circuit. But Dan Hott, car 99, chasing down Stefan McCready in front, the number 17 Infinity. Both of them clip the grass on the exit of Westfield. That's brave. Now they go up towards Sheen Curve. Sheen is such a horrible, scary corner in the dry, isn't it? Because of the way that it suddenly has this sort of dip in the middle of it, and it flattens out as you get to the apex, and then suddenly it's all bumpy again on the exit. It's very odd, isn't it?
Basically every corner at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit is a nightmare in a touring car. But I will say, Hutt at this moment in time taking some real liberties with the curb. It seems like that Subaru really is comfortable riding the curves at this stage in the race. Now, whether he's got the car set up a little bit softer than some of his rivals, which of course you want in wet conditions, you want a soft car, you want a compliant car, as though it kind of massages the road around him. But Dan Hutt, really, I mean, that's a little bit too dramatic, I think. It's got a bit of a snap coming out of the turn, but it does seem like that Subaru, when it's facing the right direction, when it's not kissing the barriers, seems relatively confident and content in these conditions, which is not good news at all for McCready, who's under all the pressure in the world in that very skittish Infinity ahead.
Yeah, a lot of these cars still showing us that they can behave differently, even in tricky conditions as well, but both of these two rear-wheel drive floating in their own way. It is a real shame that the Levorg didn't stay as competitive for as many years as we would have hoped it did. I mean, it was amazing when it really got into its own with Turkington and Plato, and then of course went on to a championship in the hands of Ash Sutton, and then in its later life it just seemed like they were struggling absolutely everywhere with that car. It was all about the sort of the way that the weight was spread out across the car, wasn't it? The weight distribution and the way that it had ride height that nobody else could really match for the length of it and so on, and it was just one of those anomalies that really works, like the old Volvo 850 estates and even the lesser spotted Honda Civic estate that raced in the British Touring Car Championship with Team Dynamics. A lot of people forget that that car ever existed, and that was
only
really
for a season, wasn't it, that they had that car? It's kind of like blink and you miss it, which I thought was a real sort of own goal, a bit of a miss, that one. So if you're gonna go for something obscure, which clearly is a marketing decision, but it was still pretty competitive. Just doing it for 1 year and all that learning, and then throw that away to start again, felt like a bit of a pity at the time.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? But we often do see teams do that, and you wonder what the long-term game was, to be honest.
Marketing dollars.
Well, that's it. Another interesting one. I know there's a race going on at the moment, but you've got me excited now about touring cars. The Peugeot 308. Do you remember the orange one? God. Who thought that was a good idea? Like, oh God. Anyway, Less said about that, the better. This is Jakub Kowalski in 15th place. He's got Johannes Leppert in front of him, so he's in for a surprise at some point, I'm sure. But now he looks down the inside into Surtees. Nice and tidy stuff. And again, just highlights how fair and tidy the racing is, as you mentioned before, Paul.
Yeah, the driving standards have been incredible, actually. I mean, anybody who's kind of watching this broadcast that isn't familiar with the world of virtual motorsports or doesn't understand particularly what it's like to race competitively in R-Factor 2 in these conditions, in these kind of cars, it is so incredibly difficult to keep the car on the track, to be well aware of where you are in relation to others around you, to give them racing room. The car's wanting to understeer, then oversteer, then power oversteer, all at the same time usually. It is so hard to run in close proximity, and for Jakub Kowalski as well, almost difficult to run all on his Jack Jones. So massive credit to every one of these drivers for putting on such a professional looking show. And don't forget, it's the last race of the season as well, so a lot of these guys and gals are going out there with absolutely nothing to win or lose apart from having themselves a jolly good time.
Yeah, that's it. And there's a lot of drivers out there tonight that aren't going to be sort of fighting for a championship. They know that there's nothing really that they can win, but at the end of the day, they've had the season, the championships have been decided. You may as well just go out there and enjoy it now, and it's great to see that even at the end of a season, as we both know, in sim racing, numbers can dwindle very quickly when it tails off, and especially when the championship's been sorted. But it's just great to see that all of a sudden they're back on it, and you know, everyone's here because they enjoy it. They're here for the love of it. It's absolutely brilliant. We've got Mike Yao posting more pictures of terrible Peugeots in the chat. We've got the old 406s, which apparently some of them still run, the Peugeot 406s from 2001.
Really, they didn't even run when they were when they were in period. They didn't run for more than a 25-minute race, but they were quite. There's something. I have an attraction to things that aren't nice looking in racing.
Oh, that's why we got on so well.
Yeah, exactly. I like that car because it's so foul. There was just something about it. I hated that particular rule set, the BTC rule set, which didn't help itself because it came in immediately after Super Touring. So they had something awesome. They stopped doing something awesome and brought something dog poo on stream, which feels kind of bizarre. It's like having a steak, the most delicious steak in the world, and then for your next meal having off-brand fish fingers. Anyway, back to the action. John Munro, speaking of fish out of water, is in 4th position and fancies 3rd, looks to the outside of Herlock, decides nothing doing, cuts back to the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. That'll give him the run up to Druids. Herlock recognises the threat and goes immediately to the inside. So Munro now will again get back on the brakes. So what it knows is going around the outside of Druid to try and get the inside for Graham Hillben, but Herlock recognises the threat once again, runs the car all the way out to the outside of the racetrack, keeps it within the confines just about through Graham Hill as we run down now into Surtees. This is going to be a big ask for John Munro. Gets the car to the inside of Surtees, stops it on his markers, gets the job done, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how to make an overtake at Brands Hatch. John Munro, fantastic stuff, picks away 3rd position from Herlock ahead behind. Great drive from the Sancho Simsport man.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Really beautiful move there by John Munro, and that's exactly what you want to see. Hard racing, and well, he has to get on with it and make a send. And to be honest, it's those moments that can change a championship and really throw things up in the air, not just for yourself, but any other drivers involved. And well, it's just, you've got to have the guts to go and do it, especially in dry conditions, but even here in wet conditions as well. That was very gutsy stuff, and again shows the talent level at the front end of this field, doesn't it?
Speaking of talent, Mike Yau's managed to find an even uglier touring car Peugeot.
That was the one I meant. That was the one that was after the 307.
When you first said it, I'm like, yeah, it's bad, but it wasn't. It's not noteworthy bad. But yeah, that one is. That is pooper scooper. That is. In fact, I have cleaned the cat litter with things that are more attractive than that there Peugeot. Unfortunately, the 307, not nice in its resplendent Halfords colours. But anyway, Matt Richards has decided the pit lane is going to be his friend for a while. Gets the car up on the jacks. Is that some new boots that he's putting on that one, or something has gone a little bit awry? But whatever's happened, Matt Richards now wave goodbye to a decent finishing position in this race. Real shame to not see the theatrics of the BMW going sideways.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I absolutely love the word awry.
Right, yes.
That's what I picked up out of that. But yeah, it's interesting to see Matt sat there in the pits, but albeit a little bit unfortunate to see him sort of out of the battle. We've got a fantastic scrap going on here, though. This is the 444 of Callum Wilson, Cam Brewster just behind him, and then, of course, there, McCready with them as well. Great battle going on with Morby all at the front.
Whenever I see Cameron Brewster's name, though, I can't help but think of Terminator 3. Where anyway, blah, Captain Brewster.
That was a scarily good impression of us.
Like, get the job, I do it.
He knew that if you're from Sheffield, you can do a fantastic accent.
Yeah, but anyway. Speaking of which, Brewster on the inside. That sounded like Toto Wolff. So let's move on.
We've got the 4 Infinities together now, and down the inside of Wilson. Well, he's been absolutely freight trained. Oh, a bit of contact as well from the 85 of Ben Willis, who makes it down the inside, and it's the 444 that loses out. Callum Wilson going absolutely backwards there, I'm afraid. And that's all it can take, though, when you're in a train like that. If you get offline or you get pushed out wide somewhere and someone makes a move on you, all of a sudden you find yourself losing not just 1, 2, 3, 4 places in that moment. But Ross McGregor now leading this race with John Munro, Dan Hurlock, Chris Butcher and Thomas Vack inside the top 5. And it's looking, well, we're only just over the halfway point, but we're looking at a potential Zancho 1-2 here. Cam Brewster now turns his attention to Phil Morby in the focus in front, and it's looking like it's not as bad as it was before conditions-wise, but then again, watch that shot back once more and then tell me again, because all of those Infinities were sideways, but they still have that rear-wheel drive advantage, it seems, off the corner, don't they?
Yeah, there's a little bit less standing water than we saw in race 1. The Rooster Taylor spray is much more discreet than we saw in the first race now, which is going to start to come to the rear-wheel drive cars, as we're seeing Cam Brewster once again on the attack, looking to the outside. This is not where you need to be for the run down the dip on the Grand Prix circuit. He's going to concede that potential overtaking manoeuvre, get the car back to the inside. Let's have a look just how well the rear-wheel drive cars can get their power down. Yes, much more stable than we saw in the first race for the rear-wheel drive Infinity. So now the conditions are starting to come to the rear-driven cars. But again, that then makes a bit of a question mark, doesn't it, Chaz, about tyre wear? If you had an easier time of it last time out in the wetter conditions, now are they going to start burning their tyres up much more as Brewster around the outside of Sterling's? Great opportunity this for Brewster. Gets the deal done before we even get into Clark Curve. Good move, and now the Toyota getting swallowed up by the pack behind. And Chaz Draycott's wife again must be uploading photographs, because he's gone onto the silent as we're looking now at Chris Butcher at the front of the field, 4th position, trying to find a way past Hurlock for 3rd place, gets the job done on the switch bike, and welcome back Chaz.
Yeah, sorry, that wasn't her actually, that was me. I'd muted my mic to have a drink and I didn't unmute it.
Hey,
amateur. Absolute amateur hour here.
Too busy spamming ugly photos of Peugeots in the chat. That's the problem.
Yeah, me and Mike were discussing which Peugeots look bad, and I've turned it to which ones look good. Anyway, Chris Butcher,
failed miserably, by the way.
He's going to be fed up of looking at Astras, especially the RSR ones. Why has one got a black roof? Anyway, no, they all have. It's just one of them's matte and the others aren't. Sort your spec maps, boys. But honestly, Chris Butcher is going to be fed up of looking at these RSR cars right now. All around him, he's got Thomas Vack, he's got Chris Shepherd behind as well, and even in there as well is Daniel Hurlock in front of him, sorry. They're side by side, a little bit of contact as they go through Westfield. There's more cars than you can shake a stick at, but this is great stuff to watch Butchie hold on to it. Wonderful fighting between the two, but once again, it shows us just how good the racing can be in these cars, Paul, because they can lean on each other a bit, they can survive the contact. They don't always go flying off the road at the merest of light breezes, do they? They can proper have door-to-door real touring car racing. And look at that dry line that's forming now. Very distinct.
I was just about to say that one. It seems like in the last 5 or 6 minutes or so, the rain stopped falling and the track is really drying out now. As Chris Butcher in the THR car around the outside is not going to have enough of a run through Paddock Hill Bend, I don't think. There we go, make me a liar, thanks very much. He's on the outside though for the run up to Druids, and that's not the position that you want to be in. A little bit squirrely still under braking, so there's still a bit of greasy surface out there as the two cars try to become one, and once again Ross McGregor gets the position at the front of the field. But let's go back now to the Butcher fight and Hurlock, still side by side for the third corner in a row. Can they get it done now at Clearways? Hurlock to the outside, Butcher on the inside. Butcher runs to the middle of the racetrack. There we go, on corner exit, and runs out of space for Hurlock. Good job there, and now Dan Hurlock has got himself an angry hornet of cars behind him trying to find the way past.
And they'll all be screaming at him as well in chat if they're all together, because they're all his teammates as well. They may have different spec maps on the cars, but they are all teammates together. That's Daniel Hurlock, Thomas Vack and Chris Shepherd. Well, Chris Shepherd's half on the road anyway. Some of them headlights ablaze. And Chris Butcher will be very happy now to have cleared Hurlock. He's going to be hoping to get further and further away. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 1. Someone having a little bit of a mishap. That's very quickly withdrawn again. But it's Zancho first and second, THR in third, and then we've got the three RSR cars, 87, 66 and 11 behind them. Cam Brewster is 7th, Stephen McCready 8th, Ben Willis 9th, and Callum Wilson is currently rounding out the top 10. But here is the lead. Well, I was going to call it a battle, but I don't think it is a battle as much. These two Zancho Simsport focuses are just working together to move forward now, and it's one of those important moments in a race, isn't it, Paul, where when you are working with your teammate, if you do go by one another, well, I was going to say you don't want to hold each other up, really. You want to do it on the straight, but again, they're making us liars, aren't they, mate? They're good at this.
Welcome to my world, buddy. There we go, John Munro to the inside. He'll get that one done. No harm, no foul there. 3 wide. What do you call 3 Astras on the same bit of tarmac?
I don't know.
Absolutely no second-hand resale value. So Ross McGregor now drops down to second position. Big question, Chaz. Who's going to pretend that they're insightful and read Aidan Millward's comment in the chat and pretend it's our own observation? You or me?
I'll dig the hole. I'll put myself in that hole. So what I think Matt Richards has done is, I think he's pitted so he can have a better tyre for the third race if it's dry. So he's taken his option now, or something to that effect anyway. If it's wrong, blame Aidan Millward.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's right, then it's because you've got two absolute finger-on-the-pulse commentators calling the shots. And there is Matt Richards with said change of tyres. And look, note how there's no blue sidewall. Has he got himself some slick boots on there, which are coming alive? Because just remember how far back that BMW was when it made its stop. And last by a healthy margin as well. This is a relatively short lap. It's a relatively long time on pit lane to put fresh boots on the car, even if you're not taking fuel. So not only has he got the bad tyre, so to speak, out of the way for the second race, he's getting some learnings of what it's like in moderately dry conditions on this circuit. And actually, it's not a million miles away from getting a fairly decent result as well.
Well, that's it. I'm just having a look now, and I'm going to keep my eye on his sectors and just see what he does in terms of the drivers ahead of him. He's gone off at, that's Hawthorns, isn't it, as he goes up the hill. I was just staring at the timing screen, suddenly saw him on the grass. Through Westfield again, he's going to lose a bit of time, of course, for going off, but he's straight back up to pace again. And now back up through Sheen Curve at the top, using all of that curb on the inside, staying as far away as possible from the grass on the left. Now nice and tidy through Stirlings, and it seems like the dry line is a bit more potent in certain places around the circuit, Paul, but I'll keep my eye on Richard's lap times and I'll get back to you.
And it requires a special skill set as well in these conditions. When you see the dry line on the slick tyres, on that dry line, the tram tracks, so to speak, there is a ton of grip. Step away from that, even by a couple of inches. Run a little bit deep into the corner, turn in too early or too late, get too early on the throttle and run off that ideal line. It is absolute ice on slick tyres. So yes, faster in these conditions, but still incredibly perilous, and Matt Richards doing a sterling job at this moment in time in the Aerostream Motorsport BMW 330i M Sport BTCC car. Can he do enough to continue his progress up from 14th position? That's going to be a big ask with just 3 laps left on the clock. But more importantly, it's not about this race, as Chaz said. It's not about the here and now. It's about the third and final race. The final race of this round and the final race of this championship, and Matt Richards is looking to go big and get a solid result to wrap up what has been a sensational campaign for the BMW driver.
It really has indeed. I mean, when you look at the podium count for everybody, there's only 2 drivers that have got more than 10 podiums this season, and that is Chris Butcher, who's got 13, and Matt Richards, who's got 17. But then even when you look at race wins, only 2 drivers have got more than 2 victories so far this year. John Munro has 3 to his name. Matt Richards has 7 this season. He's been absolutely dominating at the top of the standings. I must give a shout as well to Callum Wilson, who's actually the highest placed driver in the championship without a podium this season. He comes into this round in 14th in the championship, so it just shows you how important the podiums are and how often they can come for drivers as well. But this is a great quintet of cars here. Cam Brewster in 7th position. Yeah, I love that one. We've got Thomas Vack in 6th place just ahead of him, but behind Cam we've got Stefan McCreadie, Ben Willis and Callum Wilson as well. Wonderful to see. We've got a couple of cars from the same teams, but then at the back of this, Callum Wilson in the Wilsman Racing machine, chasing down the Drake Racing, one of 2 in this group. We're looking at the other one now of Cam Brewster. This could very quickly become a sextet as well if the car ahead of them drops back slightly. That's Daniel Hurlock. And it's interesting to see that despite those 3 teammate Astras being stuck together earlier, Paul, they're actually a bit more spread out.
Yeah, so again, these are the kind of pros and cons of racing in packs, aren't they? When you have a little battle, when you have a little fight, it's very easy to win or lose time. And when you're fighting like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars all squabbling for the same bit of tarmac, you're concentrating on dealing with the traffic around you rather than trying to get the ultimate lap time. So it's so easy, if you're the front car, I'm saying it's easy, to break away from the chasing pack. And Cameron Brewster now fancies his chances for the run down in to Paddock Hill Bend. The Infinity, the rear wheel drive Infinity, will be better off of the corners, but the front wheel drive car, provided the Vauxhall has looked after his tyres, should be better on turning. So the Infinity to the outside line, trying to use that extra grip, trying to use that extra acceleration to his advantage, but doesn't have enough real estate in which to work from, and that allows yet another Infinity just behind Cameron Brewster to find a way past. That is, of course, Stefan McCreadie in 8th position. As again, side by side, but you know as well as I do, Chaz, the outside line, not always the easiest place to find a way past one of your rivals.
No, that's it. You know, you can sometimes try and make it work if you go wide on the way into the corner, get a run on the exit, but trying to go all the way around the outside at Surtees, almost an impossible move. You have to really pray that the driver down the inside makes too much of an effort to give you the extra room out there and compromises their own line a bit too much. But right now, Cam Brewster, well, he's looking to try and not compromise himself, because he knows that right behind him is Stefan McCreadie, and he is, well, McReady to have a little go and try and make the move if Cam hesitates one tiny bit. And McCreadie can't even let off either, because Ben Willis is right there as well. He's come through from the back of the grid, it must be said. Let's not forget, actually, Ben Willis had a bit of a spin on the formation lap of this race, so he's right up there now inside the top 10. And in the final race, any position from 6th to 12th could get reversed onto pole position. John Munro, YouTube's John Munro as he's known, now leads this race by quite the margin over Ross McGregor. Actually, it's 4.7 seconds now as he goes on to the last lap of the race. I don't think he'll want to give that position back to McGregor, especially considering that Butchie is right with him for 2nd place now. On to the final lap.
Yep, so final lap for our race leaders in this little battle now. If you're Cameron Brewster, the car's looking quick at this stage, and if you were the team manager, Cameron Brewster, would you be on the radio saying, "Lad, do it now"? When it comes to that overtake, I'm sure you would be, but he actually seems to be more defending now as the 2 Astras come together at the front of this little battle pack.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's just going to be one of them cracks and makes a mistake here. That's all it's going to come down to. And there could be quite the chain reaction from it as well, as Brewster is all over the back of the Astra right in front of him now. This is not an easy time to be. Sorry, it's Dan Hurlock, isn't it, in the 86? Oh, no, sorry, it is the 66 of Thomas Vack. I saw that Hurlock was at the front of it, but he's actually been sort of reeled in as well now. Apologies, got the numbers the other way around. But now they're right together, and there's a trio ahead of them as well. As Shepherd has gone, and down the inside of Vack goes Brewster. Very decisive move. Here is Chris Butcher on the back of Ross McGregor into Sheen Curve once more. Ross McGregor slides the car sideways through there. He tries to hold on to it. There's not quite a car's width on the right-hand side by the time they close up to the white line for Butchie, but Chris has got a fantastic run off the corner. He's going to be on the outside of Ross McGregor into the final corner. Chris Shepherd's going to have a look down the inside as well, is he? No, he's going to wait for this to all go to pot in front of him. Butcher around the outside at Clearways. What a manoeuvre in the Astra. John Munro takes the win. That's his 4th win of the season. And Chris Butcher, with an amazing manoeuvre, gains himself some more championship points. What a finish that was. Butchie 2nd, McGregor 3rd.
Superb stuff as this little battle pack now crosses the line as well. Thomas Vack in 7th position across the line. McCready holds on to 8th. Ben Willis moves up into 9th place as well. And it's quite clear to me that wet tyres on a drying track, everybody's tyres are absolutely cream crackered, and the checkered flag could not come soon enough for each and every one of them, not least of which Ross McGregor, who loses out right on the very death throes of this second to last race of the day.
Yeah, that was epic stuff. I was looking at Matt Richards' lap times. He's on a purple sector 2 on that lap, and does he do the fastest lap of the race at the end? He does. Wow. A 1:36.1. That was 3 seconds. 3 seconds quicker than John Munro. A lot of his other laps were only about 1 to 1.2 seconds quicker than the race leader, so he wasn't reeling them in a massive amount, but right at the end there, 3 seconds quicker than the race leader, and that was John's best lap as well, right at the end of the race. So amazing stuff by Matt Richards, just not quite enough to get him the result that he would have wanted from the end. So John Munro takes the win. Chris Butcher 4.5 seconds back, but he beats Ross McGregor with that amazing move at the very end. That was beautiful stuff. Chris Shepherd hangs on in 4th ahead of Daniel Hurlock. Cam Brewster moves up to 6th. Thomas Vack is 7th ahead of Stephen McCready and Ben Willis, with Callum Wilson rounding out the top 10. Jakub Kowalski is 11th. Phil Morby recovers to 12th after a spin on the first lap. Johannes Leppert 13th ahead of Matt Richards. Dan Hyde, Sam Dowman and Dan Hutt finishes 17th. We got everybody in that one finishing the race. Dan Hyde has messaged saying that he accidentally started the race on softs, which is probably why he went completely backwards in the first lap before he even got turned by anybody, and that's not it's not an ideal strategy, is it, to be fair?
No, absolutely not. But big shout out to Ben Willis, actually. Started at the back of the grid, got himself in a little bit of drama, but still recovered to 9th position. So a tidy little drive there from Willis.
Absolutely, yeah, really good recovery. We will now wait and see what the reverse grid draw will be. That will get drawn very shortly. But what we'll do in the meantime is we're going to have a quick break here on the VMO TCUK. Myself, Chaz Draycott, and Paul Jeffrey with Mike Yao on production. We'll be all back in about 10 minutes' time. We'll see you soon. referee here for the VMO TCUK Championship finale from Brands Hatch. It sounds like something an Italian man would call a yogurt. Anyway, we've got Paul Jerry joining me in the box here. We've gone a little bit insane because it's the end of the season. We've got Mike Yao on production, and we've got one more round ahead of us now, Paul. It's been a great night so far with different conditions. And, well, I'm super excited to see what this very final race has to offer us. What do you reckon we're going to see in this one on a drying circuit?
It's going to be fantastic. Cannot wait for this one, Chaz. And, most excitedly of all, as well as it being a dried circuit, reverse grid. So take it away, dude. Let's know who's starting from the front to the back.
Yes, indeed. And on this reverse grid, we have Phil Morby on pole position. Jakub Kowalski joins him on the front row. Callum Wilson is third with Ben Willis in fourth position. And then the third row is Stefan McCready and Thomas Vack. Next up is Cam Brewster and Daniel Hurlock. And then we have Chris Shepherd and Ross McGregor rounding out the top 10. Chris Butcher will start 11th, John Munro 12th, and that tells you exactly that it was a full 12-car reverse grid for the final race of the season. That's exactly what you want to see. Plenty of action guaranteed. Johannes Leppert 13th, Matt Richards 14th. Dan Hyde is going to start 15th, hopefully on the right tyres this time. Sam Dowman is 16th. Dan Hutt is in 17th. Dan Kell makes it back for race 3, which is great to see. He may not win the championship, but it's awesome to see Dan make it back for the final race. And Scott Morris in the TR-powered machine at the back of the grid.
Superb stuff, and on behalf of touring car fans and sim racers everywhere, I'd like to apologise for the liveries on show, on your screen with this reverse grid. Certainly noteworthy colour schemes. Philip Morby in particular at the front of the field is rocking Paint Shop Pro. No, jokes aside, I take the mic just for jest, but they're definitely very colourful and makes our life easy, doesn't it, as a commentator, apart from the two identical infinities behind.
Yeah, that's all down to numbers, which I can't quite see very well.
Although no, look, the wing mirrors are a different colour.
There we go.
You've gone for like colours that are almost identical, but they are different.
Yeah, that'll do. We'll go with that. One of them's a single digit, one's a triple digit. We'll go with that. Jakub Kowalski, I think, is car number 6, and then his teammate is car 444. Callum Wilson in third place. Callum's one to watch in this, you know. I reckon Callum and Ben on that second row of the grid certainly could take a victory here if they just keep it tidy at the start, and they've got that rear-wheel drive advantage, and to be fair, so have the first 4 cars behind Phil Morby on this grid as well, so Phil's going to feel a little bit worried here. It's interesting to see as well, this is one thing I really love about the dynamic track on R-Factor. You can see dry patches on the grid spots where the cars have been because the engine heat has warmed up the track, and look at Morby's angle at the start here. He's pointing the car way over to the left to make sure that he doesn't drop down the hill very suddenly, and there's a lot of other drivers that are straightening the car to the right, that's starting on the left-hand side of the grid. Let's get going there one more time this season in the VMO TCUK. The revs are up, lights are on, and for one more time this season from Brands Hatch, we are going to be... Wait for it. I usually build it up too early. There we go, and we're away, and look at that second row of the grid already. Fantastic start from Ben Willis, but round the outside, car number 9, not number 6, turn it the other way up. Jakub Kowalski goes for the lead down the inside. Callum Wilson makes contact with Phil Morby. Morby sideways front wheel drive style though, floors it and keeps it pointing in the right direction. He's now looking back down the inside of Ben Willis. Ben needs to be careful. There's a car off at the back, and I think it might have been Matt Richards. You know, I think he might have been around in the BMW. Morby back up to second place then on Willis, and he's already having a go again at Kowalski for the race lead. It's not Matt Richards that's gone off because we've got him picture on the right hand side, which we've only just noticed, so someone else went off. I think it was Scott Morris at the very back of the field, but a fantastic start up at the front, a lot of action already, and here is Butcher and Kell side by side.
Beautiful stuff at the front of the field, really spicy from Philip Morby as well to do a good job to keep hold of just about second position. Good stand as well from Ben Willis, up in a third place. Down at the back of the field we've got Dan Horlock in 18th place, so Horlock has been in a little bit of drama in these opening few corners of the race. Matt Richards 9th position in the BMW, one of the few drivers in this field that has got relevant and recent experience of slick tyres in the BMW on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Butcher charging his way through as well. There we go, side by side with the Subaru, a little bit of kiss and shoving, but just about makes his way through, does Butcher. 10th position, next man up the road for him is Cameron Brewster in position 9, and We've got a bit of dry stuff on the track now. Jazz, this means elbows out because it's the last time this year.
Yep, school's out. Absolutely now. The last day of school is one of my favourite phrases in motorsport. Look at this. All Infinity's trying to go down the inside of one another. That was McCready looking down the inside of Willis with Callum Wilson looking down the inside of him. Callum turns it out to the outside now, but doesn't make that one work. Chris Butcher there just moving ahead of the other Infinity, which I believe is... Oh, which one was that actually that he was getting past there? There's a car off in the background. It's Dan Hyde. It's Mr. Kell there. I can't believe how high up the order these guys are already, actually. It was Chris Butcher going past Cameron Brewster there, and that was the move for 9th position. I was looking way further down the order than I should have been. Dan Kell's had a great first lap, though. He's come from the back of the grid, or, well, 18th place, all the way up into 11th in the first lap, and sideways for the lead. That was not for the lead, sorry. That was Kowalski for second place. Phil Morby is in the lead, and he is way gone, but there was contact there with Ben Willis and Jakub Kowalski, and well, that is the two guys that were fighting for second position, making more contact, unfortunately. And well, Ben Willis, maybe series admin, but he's not immune to a penalties. Oh, that was scrappy, very scrappy from Matt Richards going down the inside. I couldn't quite see who he was trying to overtake. It might have been Chris Shepherd. The two of them making contact. Oh no. No. That was Callum Wilson putting the car back into the middle of the road in an attempted turnaround. Don't think he expected Dan Hyde to be coming around that late, and a humongous hit as well. Kowalski now goes around. Was that Willis waiting for him? Or was... No, Willis has carried on. There was Cam Brewster off the road. So, God, there's cars from all sorts of teams all over the place now, because some of them have 3 cars in their team, and they're all spread out throughout the order. And, well, I'm starting to lose my mind as to where they all are. Chris Butcher is now trying to make a move of some form anyway on Thomas Vack, and he gives him a whack at least on the right hand side. He now looks down the inside into Druids Bend. There's a bit of a wet patch under the bridge, manages to make it work through there. 65 passes 66, and Butcher's on a mission here, Paul.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have uncorked a bottle of bonkers and used it all the way through the field. Some drama top to bottom. Let's have a look now. This is Kowalski that you see just losing the car of his own accord, actually. So we thought Willis made contact, but that is Kowalski, unfortunately, losing it all by himself. That allows Willis up in a 3rd position. So it started off a little bit on a poo-poof note for Ben Willis at the start of this campaign today, but coming good very nicely indeed in fine touring car style for race 3. Willis, bottom step at the podium this moment in time, as yet more cars go and have a look at the finely manicured grass here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Not much grip on the green stuff. And let's have a look at the BMW. So light contact with the Vauxhall as well to start the incident, but Matt Richards was already heading straight to the scene of the accident, and that's some fine synchronised pirouetting from those two. And then let's have a look at that rejoin. In fact, we cut away from that one for the secondary contact, but I was saying about the first race and the second race being very clean. Well, it's all gone insane for the third and final race.
It really, really has, and there was a big moment there as well for Willis. He's just been on the grass and the gravel on the exit. So here's Dan Hyde coming through Westfield at full race pace, and I imagine that he would have just expected any cars to be off the circuit when he got there. And as you can see, well, there's Callum Wilson. That was beautifully timed there, actually, Mike. Now, I'm not sure if he was expecting Callum to be already moving to be pointing in that direction, but it's a whack in the front right corner, and both cars, I imagine, receiving a lot of damage. And look at that. Whoa, there was more going on as well. Was that Scott Morris? No, it can't have been. It was another Wilsman racing car. That was Sam Dowman that was already having his own moment, avoiding that accident, and then clouted into the front of Matt Richards, who, by the look of it, is out of this race. It was a very, very scrappy finale for Matt. He's going to be happy that he won the championship already before this one. So here he is. I mean, it's comical from that angle, really, but you can understand any frustration from Matt's side of things. You know, you're rejoining the circuit and suddenly another Infinity that, just comes out of nowhere, suddenly clouts you across the front. And the moment before that was Chris Shepherd and Matt Richards side by side. I think Chris wanted to turn over to the right a little bit to squeeze Matt to the inside, and well, that contact unfortunately meant that Matt had gone a little bit deep into the corner. I think he was a little bit deep on the brakes anyway, and then he smacked into Callum Wilson, and it just became a big old mess from there. There's Johannes Lepit. The wheels on that Subaru could do with being about a metre wider apart, to be honest, from where they look from behind, but that's just how the car works, really. That's how it's always worked. The body always sort of extruded further in the wheels on the Levorg. It's a very strange-looking racing car. But Phil Morby leads this race at the moment, Paul, by 5.5 seconds, or it was anyway, for the last corner or so.
Well, who would have thought that the driest of the three races is the one where everybody's having themselves a crash bang wallop? Yeah, let's take a moment. There we go. That's another one of the Infinities going pirouetting through the gravel at the top of Graham Hill Bend as well. So I'm not quite sure which of our Infinity drivers that one is. Could it be Callum Wilson? Could have been Sam Doman as well. We'll come back to that one in a moment as we're looking now at Jonas Leppit in the TR powered by Geeks Racing Hyundai. No, it's not. Subaru. I'm seeing a note as well. Matt Richards, door banging with Shepherd, wasn't expecting Wilson to brake so much. Oops. So, yeah, shame there for Matt Richards to end his day early, especially considering he put the work in race 2 to get himself prepared for this third and final encounter of the day. And Ben Willis, actually off camera, has dropped down a 4th position, so Shepherd finding a little bit of pace in these early stages to move himself up to that there bottom step of the podium, just behind McCready in second, and as you say, Morby currently running away with things at the front of the field.
Lovely to see the reflections and the sunlight coming through now on these gorgeous looking racing machines. You can see the sheen and the finish on them, and look at that, Shepherd just turns into the side of Stephen McCready. He can't completely disappear, Chris. I don't know where you want him to go, as now Ben Willis puts his nose down the inside as well. Shepherd's certainly getting his elbows out in that Astra. It's something he's been known for before in this championship, and look at that push there from Chris Butcher. He tries to put him through there, and well, Shepherd turns in, Willis is there, and there's contact, and ultimately Shepherd is the one that loses out from that. But now the man that's going to gain from it is Chris Butcher, who goes down the inside. Does he get a tap from Kell? I don't think he does, but they nearly rub panels. And now all through this as well, Dan Hutt has got involved in this one in the Subaru. Car 99 just trying to squeeze his way through, but then again, it's 48 feet long is that Subaru, so you're not going to squeeze it through anywhere. And Shepherd gives him a quick reminder that that Subaru does not belong there, and he throws him back out the order. But yeah, Ben Willis right in the thick of it here. And again, it's great to see, I must say, Dan Kell from the back of the grid, 18th up to 4th, and he's fighting with his good old rival, Chris Butcher.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. And now we go. Dan Kell to the inside. First race for Kell of the day. Moves himself, does it? Not quite up in the 3rd position, but lives to fight another day. Still on the tail of Butcher. Meanwhile, one of the Infinities goes off track and gets back on again. Kell showing his nose down the inside. Maybe a little bit too uncommitted, shall we say, from Kell there, but he just about holds on, and luckily for him, Butcher keeps the car on the racetrack as well. Dan Hutt in the big old Subaru having a great fight as well. Hutt's car coming alive now. The dry conditions are in effect here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and I just don't know what's going on here, man. Everybody's thinking, should we just spend time on the grass? Is this dirt rally that we're watching, or is this R Factor 2 because there's a whole load of grass tracking, but we love it, don't we?
We do indeed. I think Chris Shepherd might have come into the pits, I think somebody has got a pending penalty, which is Dan Herlock, actually. No, Chris Shepherd does not go into the pits, but he slowed down and then seemingly sped back up again. He lost a lot of time. I'm not sure if he had like a slowdown penalty or something applied because of track limits. I know that sometimes you can give time back and you have to be very cautious of your track limits. Look at the glint there off the sun. That's absolutely wonderful, isn't it? Love those sorts of effects. Suddenly now Shepherd back up to full speed, so I think it might have been some sort of penalty. Dan Kell all over the back of Chris Butcher. Chris Shepherd now back in a trio with his teammates, and there's battles going on absolutely everywhere. Phil Morby's going to be loving it because he's 7 seconds clear at the front. Shepherd and Kell door banging once again as they go down towards Pilgrim's Drop. They're in the slipstream with Stephen McCready. That focus is a missile in a straight line though, and Dan Kell around the outside of Butcher into Hawthorns. Is he going to make that work? He's going to leave the room down the inside. Butcher makes that work, and he could potentially, no, he doesn't go for a move on Stephen McCready, but all the while behind them now, Ben Willis is closed back in, Ross McGregor is closed back in. This is getting more and more feisty lap after lap as down the inside into Sheen Curve. That is absolutely wonderful by Dan Kell. The two of them side by side through there, great respect, although Butcher runs a little bit wide. I think there might have been a tiny tap. Willis is suddenly on the charge now to come through. Stumbling over my own words, there's that much going on here, Paul. It's excellent entertainment though.
It really is. If you're Stephen McCready now, you're going to be absolutely cacking your pants, seeing all those cars behind you.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, you feel like I'm sure Stephen McCready is a much faster driver, but it's like when you got one of those back markers in Formula One that suddenly find themselves on a safety car at the front of the field, and it's just like, oh, good Lord, there's so many people want that position. But McCready, holding on quite nice at the moment as Kell moves up in a second position. The fight further down the field as well is with one of the Focus cars, just about holds on. And I honestly, this could go anyway at the moment, apart from Moby at the front, who's just checked out.
Well, that's the thing, though. Kell is on an absolute mission. Like I say, he is flying at the moment. Even with those battles, his last lap was 0.3 quicker than Phil Morby's. So he's really on it at the minute, is Dan, and he's starting to break away. And he's going to be hoping that Stefan McCreadie can hold back Chris Butcher for now. And, well, what might help him do that is Ben Willis putting the pressure on the Astra in front of him. Great to see so many manufacturers in this battle as well. We've got the Astra of Chris Butcher, and we've got the Infinity of Ben Willis, the Ford Focus behind. Oh, no, Ben Willis isn't in it anymore. He just oversteps it, just pushes his luck too much through Hawthorns and puts a wheel on the grass. And that's the trick with rear-wheel drive cars. You can't get away with it like you can in front-wheel drive. And unfortunately, Ben Willis finds himself in the wall after what was a great drive through the field in race 2, and even a great drive here as well in race 3. It's all come undone, and that's the sort of margins we're dealing with.
Yeah, real shame for Ben Willis there. Real sad end to his adventures at the front of the field. Had a good drive, as you say. Meanwhile, Chris Butcher is getting very bored indeed of seeing the rear of McCreadie's Infinity. A little bit of a touring car love kiss through the final corner at Clark Curve. Not quite enough to unsettle the Infinity, but Butcher now on his tippy toes, getting the rear of that car out, pivoting through the Paddock Hill bend. Doesn't have the inside, so he looks to the outside into Druids. He'll try and cut back into line again, because look who's behind. Ross McGregor trying to find an opportunity. McGregor in the Zancho machine, just holding station at this moment in time, seeing how the battle ahead of them unfolds over the course of the next few corners. And the speed that we've seen in that Focus so far this weekend, do not be surprised if Ross McGregor takes not one but 2 overtakes at the same time. Such is the performance of driver and car combined.
I must say one thing as well, though. Like, despite we've complimented the amazing driving standards so far, but there's a lot of drivers here that they will have a car go down their inside, but then they'll just sort of turn in when there's less than a car's width down the inside of them, almost just to make sure that they know that they're still there. It's almost like a bit of a hip check on the way into the corner. It's quite an interesting tactic, but you saw before it didn't work for Chris Butcher, and now all of a sudden he finds himself under pressure now from Ross McGregor. As you mentioned, Ross really flying. Looking at lap times, by the way, Dan Kell did the fastest lap of the race on that last lap. It was a 31.966. Phil Morby did a 133.2, so he was 1.3 seconds quicker was Dan Kell. He very could still take the win here, and that's a very terrible sentence when it comes to English grammar.
But very good.
He very could. Butcher's very good on the grass right now. He's having a right Paris-Dakar out there, but he's lost the place to Ross McGregor, and he might even lose one to Dan Hutt as well. I am absolutely loving this, Paul. This is immense entertainment as McGregor floats it through Paddock Hill. Dan Hutt just clings to the back of him, and oh my Lord, they carry on. And is that that's Shepherd off the road again. I tell you what, he's entertaining, but he's his own worst enemy, isn't he?
Yeah, it really is. It's like you say, it's been fantastic. It's absolutely end of term feeling completely from these drivers. Yes, it's not like real life where you don't mind bending the car because you've got a long time to fix it. It's just everything is now. This is the last bit of fun of the year these drivers in this championship are going to have, and my goodness me, are they putting on a show. Dan Hutt, that we're looking at now in the big old Subaru, snuck his way up to 5th position. Impressive to sneak a car that large through the grid, and so has Dan Hutt, 5th place at this moment in time, and kinda doesn't really want to let Ross McGregor get too far away. So McGregor's got his work cut out, I think, over the course of the next 5 laps before the checkered flag falls. And you see, just dropping off in the background is the Butcher run. Astra behind, following that little excursion at the start of the lap. So tyre wear, I know I keep banging on about it, it's not a sexy topic, tyre wear, but it's so important in touring car racing, and now it's bone dry conditions and the cars are fighting so hard, squabbling all over the track and going off on many occasions. This is going to be the next few laps. We're going to see some real big moves and shakers, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, we are indeed now. The time is very much counting down and the laps are suddenly disappearing. We're into the final third of the race. Dan Hutt all over the back of Ross McGregor. It is nice to actually see that Levorg is right back on the pace again. Looking at the previous laps, Dan Kell, well, he had an invalidated lap, so he clearly went outside the track limits, but it was a 32.0 for Morby. That's his best lap of the race. And Dan Kell is now 3.8 seconds behind him. And it's actually gone up quite a bit there, you know, on the exit of Graham Hill Bend up to Surtees, but there are sort of accordion effect points of this circuit where it all concertinas together, and the drivers will show the gaps between them as a lot smaller than they actually are, if that makes sense. Dan Hutt is all over the back of Ross McGregor still, and two very different cars, one front-wheel drive short wheelbase, one rear-wheel drive lonk boy wheelbase. Dan Hutt certainly getting the most out of this Lavore right now, and it's just lovely to see it, as I repeat myself, into Westfield. Oh, a little bit of a lock up there, and he goes one way, then the other, a bit of a shimmy on the exit as well. You can tell he's really wrestling the car, and that's the best thing about dry conditions, because it's exciting in the wet when they really throw him about, but in the dry, it's even more exciting because, you know, they're on that ragged edge. There's been a moment for Stefan McCreadie. He's run wide at Sheen Curve, and all of a sudden this becomes a trio for third place.
Trio. I want a trio and I want one now. And that's exactly what we've got. But you know what? Just like in race 2, I think Ross McGregor has completely shot the front tyres on that Focus. That's why he's not pulling away from Hutt behind. I'm saying that one, he's pulled away from Hutt and now he's trying to overtake third. Come on, stop doing this to me. As Ross McGregor now all over like a cheap suit. The rear of McCreadie's Infinity to the outside. We've seen this move tried and failed so many occasions. McCreadie is just going to sneak the car to the outside line. That will give him the defensive inside for Graham Hill Bend. And while McGregor is looking one way and then the other, that allows Dan Hutt to close back up again to the rear of the Focus. And if McGregor is suffering a little bit from tyre life, there we go. The car pushes wide. Hutt, nice and easy, thank you very much. A big massive gap, which is fortunate because a big massive car goes through the inside of it, and Shepherd buys into that one as well, and Ross McGregor now has it all to do.
Yeah, that's really, really tidy stuff, that from Dan Hutt. I'm surprised there's no P&O stickers on the side of that thing, to be honest. Then again, they get laid off without being warned. But it was an amazing, amazing bit of driving that. He just waited his turn, literally waited his turn, and it was all down to McGregor just pushing it into Surtees that little bit too much. He was slightly offline. Dan Hutt saw it coming and just dived down the inside, and through he went. All of a sudden, though, Butcher seems to have got second wind now in this Astra. It's all over the back of the Lavore once more. Fantastic run through Stirlings, though, by Dan Hutt. Honestly, these sort of commentators' curses, or what did you call it before? An idiot's prediction.
Idiot's talking.
It was, as soon as you say something, they just seem to have like a boost button where they just fly forward. It's like a terrible version of that stupid thing they do in Formula E. Anyway.
What, the championship?
Yeah, run races. Oh, God. Right, we're in trouble now. Right, Dan Kell, there's a talking point. He's less than 3 seconds behind Phil Morby now, and he's got 2 more laps after this one. Is down the inside from nowhere. Ross McGregor. Lipinecki came from north of the border for that one. Down the inside of Chris Butcher. Lovely move. This is John Munro and Cam Brewster together for 9th and 10th. Flipping heck everywhere we look, there's something going on, but this is proper touring car racing, Paul. This is mint.
I must say, what's happened to Munro? He's not worked his way through the field anywhere near as quickly as I would have anticipated. Maybe he got caught up in some of the, many of the bonkers dramas that we had over the opening few laps, but just 9th position for John Munro at this moment in time, and not really showing the pace that we've expected as Cameron Brewster holding on to the rear of that Focus. Takes a look to the inside as we come through Hawthorne Bend. Not really an intelligent place is Hawthorne to make the overtake, but he gets a good run now. We'll try and follow him through Westfield, forcing Munro to go defensive. That pushes Munro out nice and wide, down for Dingledell and Sheens. Easy overtake, good intelligent driving there from Cameron Brewster to pressurise his Scottish rival ahead, as once again we're back with Chris Butcher and the Ross McGregor do I don't I have tyres in this car, let's find out scenario.
Well, there's only one way to find out indeed, and as is often the case in motorsport, you just got to throw the car around the circuit as hard as you can and just learn where the limits are. We'll have to see what these guys can manage now and see what the lap times look at as well, or look like, I should say.
We call the safety car just to close things up for the last couple of laps and really add a little bit of excitement.
Competition caution, NASCAR
That's the one,
style.
Yeah, exactly. Leaves on track. Leaves on track beeps.
Yeah, we've got to stop. We've got to sort of call the race at this point. We've just realised we're in Kent. Anyway, Dan Kell has done the fastest lap of the race on the last lap, 1:31.354, and that is 0.8 of a second quicker than Phil Morby's, 1.9 seconds behind him now with 1 lap left to go. This is a great battle though. Stefan McCreadie in the Infinity, a little bit under the radar so far tonight, but still doing a wonderful job here in 3rd position. just going to look through the championship standings and see whether he's had a podium up to this point. He has not. His best result so far this season is only 10 points on the board for one race, and that was race 2 at Knock Hill. So if he can hold on to this, it'll be his first podium of the season. In terms of Dan Hutt, it would be his first podium as well. So both of them have a lot of bragging rights to go for here, don't they?
And I will say, whichever one of these two drivers gets that podium position will thoroughly deserve it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Great defensive from McCready and great attacking from Hutt up to this point. So superbly impressive driving from both of these, no matter what happens over the course of the final lap. But there's a certain Ross McGregor doesn't fancy either of those taking that podium in the Zancho cars. Now he's starting to look much more lively and spirited than earlier in the race.
Oh, look at that by Dan Hutt. Big commitment around the outside, but he's been his own worst enemy, and Ross McGregor goes through. Ross has had 7 podiums so far this season. 8 podiums so far this season. He's had 2 tonight, and he's going to try and make it 3 out of 3 podiums for car number 3. And Stephen McCready now just needs to hold on. He's got a little bit of a buffer, but you and I both know how quickly that can disappear, Paul. The gap at the front, though, for Morby and Kell, well, it's not closing down enough in the favour of Kell right now, and Morby's only got, half a lap now to hold on, and he is going to take what I believe will be his first win. He's only got 1 podium this season. That was Alton Park Race 3, so this would be his first win of the season, and a very important one at that for Phil Morby.
Yeah, incredible stuff. Now McCready under massive pressure from McGregor. So McGregor looking one way, looking the other. McCready recognises and goes defensive. McGregor has a little kiss and shoulder to the outside. That pushes him onto the gravel. That's allowed the Subaru of Hutt back into contention again. So McGregor fired his shot of the race. Unfortunately, it was a little bit too early, a little bit half measures, and now it's back to the 2 first-time podium finishers as our winner's about to cross the line.
Phil Morby's going to take his first race victory of the season in the very last race of the season, flashes the lights across the line, and a wonderful drive by Phil indeed. Dan Kell from 18th on the grid to 2nd, and Dan Hutt is around. He's had contact or had a mistake of some sort, and is Stephen McCready going to grab that first podium of the season? I think he is as well, and he has done. Stephen McCready gets it in the Pixelate Esports Infinity. Very well done to him. McGregor is 4th and Butcher is 5th, but Dan Hutt, it all came crashing down at the end, didn't it, Paul? Right at the finale. It's a massive shame, but what a great fight between the two. And you rightly said it before, though. They both deserve that first podium of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I said on the penultimate lap, no matter what happens over the course of the final lap, they've both driven excellently, and then one of them goes and stacks it, which, no, jokes aside, they've both driven fantastically well. That's a real shame for it to end like that one, and this is our final race result of the year, Mr. Chaz Draycott.
It is indeed, yeah. Wonderful victory that by Phil Morby. Very well done to Phil indeed, despite having the worst livery we've ever seen. Dan Kell finishes in 2nd place. What a fantastic return to form that was for Dan Kell, though. He's only done 1 race tonight after turning up late, and he starts at the back of the grid and finishes 2nd. That's remarkable. Stephen McCready, first podium of the season for him. Ross McGregor finishes in 4th, so he doesn't make it 3 from 3 tonight, but still 8 podiums this season. Very well done indeed. Chris Butcher finishes in 5th. That's another solid points haul for Butchie, and to be fair, with Daniel Hurlock finishing down in 10th, I wouldn't like to try and do the maths, to be honest, and see who finished 2nd in the championship. Johannes Leppit finishes in 6th ahead of Cam Brewster in the Drake Racing Machine. Dan Hutt eventually finished 8th. That really does not reflect the race he's had. John Munro finishes in 9th. That does reflect the race he's had. It was not quite the sort of performance we'd expect from John. Dan Hurlock didn't really make any sort of massive ground up the order either, finishing 10th outright. Thomas Vack was next up in 11th ahead of Chris Shepherd, who at points was his own worst enemy, as we said. Dan Hyde 13th, Ben Willis 14th, and Sam Dowman joined Callum Wilson 1 lap down. Jakub Kowalski, Matt Richards and Scott Morris did not make it to the end of the race. And again, for the champion-elect at least, Matt Richards, that's a massive shame to see him not take that one. And as you see there, especially from that first lap, Wilsman Racing had a nightmare of an evening.
Yep, I think there's a lot of drivers that will go away and think long and hard about what went wrong in that race, but it's big drama for us in the box and big drama for people at home, and we like drama. Makes it a little bit more exciting than it needs to be, so not a bad way, I think, sir, to end the season. I'd like to say the season's been like it all year, but I've not watched any of them. So the bits I have watched, which is these 3, tremendous.
What do you mean you've watched every single one, Paul? You...
Of course I have. I've done my research for this. I'm fully prepared. But no,
Right,
great stuff, man. Thoroughly enjoyed it, as always, being alongside you. And the boys out there on track, I think, put on quite the spanking show for us all.
Oh, spanking, yeah, that is, yeah, that's a good word to describe it, that. But then again, you taught me a lot about the English language when we had the weekend at the Motorsport Games. There's a lot of words that you can use to describe things that I never knew. Anyway, we're going to have a quick chat with some drivers, hopefully not all of them, because we'll be here for a week. But we've got 6 drivers lined up to have a quick chat with us, and I think, to be fair...
Oh, good Lord, I've had no supper, so make it quick.
Oh, well, you can sod off if you want, Paul. But we've got Dan Kell. Why don't we grab Dan and have a word with him and see just how that final race went for him? Because Dan, I mean, in a way, no offence to Phil Morby, I'm a bit gutted that you didn't take the win in the end there, because what a drive through the field. You must have been very, very disappointed to not take the win, but very happy with the performance overall. Talk us through it.
I can't believe it, to be honest. Like, literally, I wasn't even going to race tonight. I've been working. I got back and I went, oh, it's only midway through race 2. I'll do race 3. Joined in. While race 2 was on, I did 2 laps of practice.
Wow.
I then did 1 lap of practice in the warm-up and realised my FFB was inverted.
No.
So I couldn't change it for the race. I did the whole race on FFB inverted, which was an interesting experience.
Wow.
And yeah, I can't really believe it, to be honest. I mean, it was obviously massively helped by the fact I was on no weight, and basically everyone sort of was on a lot of weight and stuff. But I've done it a couple of times at brands where like I've gone in with like no weight into like the final race and done that. It's just very rewarding. And yeah, it's a shame I couldn't get Phil, but it was close. I was looking at the gap. I was having to look after my tyres as well. And yeah, it was probably one of the most fun races of the season. And it's always the ones where you don't really practice for and do them on a whim are always the best ones.
Absolutely, and you know there was a couple of you that made your way through the order in that one. It was a bit gutting for Dan Hutt as well, because he went from P17 to P3 and was behind you basically right to the end, and then of course had a bit of an incident on the final lap. But when you're making your way through the pack like that, do you keep a reference of who's gone with you, or do you just sort of keep an eye on your own positions for well, concentration's sake?
I think you do a bit. So like I noticed in the early stages, like I had John and Ross obviously trying to follow me through, and obviously I was in comms with them, and then I sort of noticed Chris as well in front. So I was like, see, I know Chris is very capable, so I sort of like I work with him a little bit, and then I never even thought of, to be honest, going for possibly the win, because I was just seeing the gap in the little mini map in the bottom just get bigger and bigger. I'm going, oh, this is done. But when I got past Stefan, I think on like lap 7, I was like, oh, it's only 7 seconds, and I got like 8 laps. I'm like, I'll give it a go, because I knew I was fastest on the track. And yeah, give it a good go. But it was just so much fun, and just like having to work with people and things like that. It's all strategy.
And you know, it's not been the worst of seasons for you either. I mean, before we even came into tonight, you had 7 podiums and 2 race wins to your name, and in a championship that's as competitive as this, you know, you know it yourself from being a champion of it already. It's still a rewarding process to get a couple of wins and some podiums to take away, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't really come in with any expectations this season, because the obviously the first round we really struggled on setup when THR found someone in the setup that we didn't, and we thought we were screwed, and I wasn't really enjoying the car, but I sort of just grew on it throughout the season, and it's been very fun. I would have liked to have maybe snatched another win or 2, or like just stop finishing 4th, because I think in the champion I finished like 4th about 5-6 times. It's a bit annoying, but I mean I'll take it. I knew I probably wasn't going to win the championship this year with Matt, and then Chris obviously being there and being able to do all the rounds unlike previous season. But I mean I don't know where I finished. I think I finished 4th because I missed obviously the first 2 races of the season this round, but I mean I'll take that. I've had a whale of a time, and I think it's definitely been the best season in terms of pace, because if you get down in P12, P11 on full weight, you can't make progress because everyone is just so quick. Yeah,
well that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's good that, you know, competitors like yourself, you can see the improvement in pace for the whole field as a good thing. You know, some people always see that as a negative and they think, oh, it's just got more difficult. But when a championship gets stronger together and the overall level of it improves, that's only good for the championship and good for the competition. And of course, it's great to see as well that you've enjoyed yourself, Dan, and that's what we're here for at the end of the day. We all do this because we love it. You know, we're not forced into doing this. Is there anyone though that you'd like to give a quick shout out to before we let you go, because we've got a lot of people to speak to, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think definitely definitely my teammates. Ross and John have been excellent all season, managing to secure that teams. Just been excellent teammates. We've been working together, like sort of letting each other through. If someone's faster, it's just been such team players. And yeah, that's it. Just and then Sancho, and then just everyone. It's been really fun this season. It's probably been my most enjoyable season so far.
Lovely stuff. Well, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, Dan. Thank you very much for jumping in, and well done on that amazing race result. We'll hopefully see you next season, buddy.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Well, there we go. Dan Kell talking us through the progress he made through the field there, Paul. And I mean, to come through from that far from the back of the order, it's a massively impressive feat. And well, I don't think we're going to see that many more times, to be honest with you, because as he mentioned, the level of it just keeps getting better, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And with no practice, coming straight from work as well makes it all the more impressive. And it just goes to show, if you're enjoying what you're doing and the form book is rolling with you, things just fall into place. And great performance from Dan, and thoroughly enjoyed watching that charge through the field as well.
Yeah, it was massively entertaining indeed. We're going to have a quick chat now with Matt Richards. Matt, that final race didn't quite go to plan in the end, but still, you've claimed the championship, you've taken the Independence Championship as well, and I mean, you've got a lot more wins and podiums than anyone else. You must be quite the happy boy considering the whole bigger picture.
Oh, definitely, 100%. I didn't really go into race 3 with a plan. I just thought, well, I've had some dry experience from race 2, so I've got the slicks on, and hopefully nobody else has any dry experience, and just see what happens. And then maybe just got a little bit overzealous with battling with Chris and Callum, and just wasn't quite expecting them to slow up as much and caught the rear end. But yeah, definitely pretty happy with the outcome, considering the rest of the season.
And that's it. I mean, Brands is always a very special place to finish the championship as well. It's one of those circuits that demands the most from everybody because it's so narrow, it's so undulating, and even in the rear-wheel drive cars, or well, I should say, even in the front-wheel drive cars, there's nowhere to hide if you get it wrong. You know, you dip a wheel onto the grass on the exit of Hawthorns, or even at the exit of Sheen Curve as well, and it's just nightmare fuel. It really puts the pressure on and shows the true capability at the end of a championship, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It does separate a lot of people, and it's one of my favourite tracks on the calendar against Croft. So it's always a good one to finish with, and especially with the changeable conditions as well. Maybe didn't quite work it out that well for race 2. Maybe should have started on the slicks instead. But at that point, I thought, well, I've wrapped the championship up. I may as well have a little bit of fun, eh?
Well, you say have a bit of fun, but to be honest, on the slow-mo replay right now, we're watching your car pile into the side of Callum Wilson's car, and unfortunately, it didn't go much further after that. I did want to, in a slight comical way, ask you about the contact afterwards, though, because one of his teammates came flying into shot and flew across the front of your car. What went through your mind when that happened? Did you think it was Callum?
I wasn't sure, to be honest. I just sort of recovered back onto the track. I was like, right, let's get going. I sort of wiggled the wheel a little bit, and it's nothing damaged. And I thought, right, let's get back into it, see what happens. And then just suddenly was facing the barrier again. I thought, well, hang on a minute. I don't think I've hit anything, have I? And yeah, the steering was completely bent. And I thought, well, I could pit to repair the damage, or, I mean, I've had a good enough season up to this point. What's one DNF?
Yeah, well, that's it. It's all about looking at the bigger picture, isn't it? But I mean, to be fair, it's quite the British response, isn't it? Hang on a minute. It's just one of those where you really have to assess what on earth is going on. But I mean, you got to feel in a way for the Wilsman team because they had a nightmare final race there, and they've had an up and down season as it is, haven't they? And I suppose that's just what changes championships, isn't it? Staying out of trouble and just getting the consistent results rather than winning every race, I guess.
Yeah, and I do feel really sorry to Callum. It wasn't intended at all. There was a bit of door rubbing going on, as with final race of the season always happens anyway. And at that point, I think everybody was in a position where they didn't really have anything to lose. But yeah, it just shows that consistently scoring the points, keeping the positions up over the season. And I mean, the run that I had, I think. If you overlook the fact that I missed a round, I think there was 12 or 15 races in a row with the podium. Yeah. So just that was really key to sort of just banking points every round. And yeah, just trying to keep as consistent as possible.
Well, it's been very impressive to see, Matt, and of course you are a very worthy champion. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
All the Xantria guys for giving me a lot of help with the setup over the season. Working on your own is a little bit difficult. And everybody for turning up to all the rounds, all the people that have helped organise this as well, all the guys on the broadcast team, you guys as well for putting in a fantastic job for the last 2 rounds. And just seeing what we can make of the next season.
Lovely stuff. Well, thank you very much for your time and everything, Matt. It's been a really, really strong season. Very well done. And we look forward to your next campaign in the next season.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Well, there we go. Very deserving champion there, Paul. And lovely guy all round, Matt Richards. I mean, the slow-mo footage may have been quite comical, but it's been a very serious and impressive season from him.
And that's when you know you've had a good year, when the absolute nightmare race comes, when everything's all done and dusted and wrapped up. That's when you need to be fast, you need to be committed, you also need to be lucky to take championships. And good for Matt Richards that he's got the hard work done and dusted and then can afford the difficult days that sometimes come in the way of a real or a virtual racing driver. So great champion, great guy as well, as you say. And I think we've got John Munro with us now. So John, hello and welcome. Congratulations on an interesting final round of the season. Tell us about it from your point of view, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a good race, to be honest. I didn't expect it because about 7:05 I realised I didn't own the track. I thought I did. So then it was a case of buy the circuit, reboot Steam, and you know what R-Factor 2 is like with packages and all sorts. So either way, we got up and running and got into the server with no expectations, but because it was wet, I think it suited me because I've gone well in the wet this year, won a race earlier. And it was basically you're kind of learning the track as you go with the changing lines and changing conditions, so that suited me, I think. And then I had really good pace in the wet, and the main thing was looking after the tyres. So race 1 I'd lost a few too many positions early on, but then came on really, really strong at the end and got within half a second of winning. And then race 2 I did the same thing, just really focused on looking after the tyres early on. And then weirdly enough, it was Ross had much worse tyre wear. Normally we're the complete opposite. Like, I loathe it because Ross normally just comes shooting straight past me with good tyres, but this time it was the opposite, so that was lovely. Managed to get past him and make him cry, and then won race 2, so no, that was really good. And then race 3 was a complete nightmare, but I had full fuel, I hadn't done a dry lap, and I was sideways about 5 times in the first 3 laps, and it was just chaos. But at that point I didn't really mind because we'd obviously sealed the team's championship and picked up some really nice results in the first 2 races. So yeah, it was a really good fun event, to be honest, Paul, and there was loads of really good clean racing as well, which is the main thing. Lots of overtaking under and over, and there was really not much bad stuff going on, so yeah, thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, I think Chaz and I in the live pictures said it's been very impressive, the standard of driving in what's been very difficult conditions with the rain for races 1 and 2. Talk to me a little bit about, as a driver, how you adapt to different weather conditions when it's raining. As you said, the track conditions change, the grip changes, the dry line forms. What does that mean to you as a driver, and how do you cope with that scenario in a competitive field?
It's all about feel, really, and I don't know why, but this season I've gone really well in the wet. I think I had a pole at Silverstone and won one of the first races, and I don't know what it is, but I just seem to suit it. And for me, it's basically just under driving and trying to, if I tell myself I need to think about tyre wear, I end up actually hitting my apexes and stuff because I'm being a little less aggressive on the way in, and that results in not only better tyre wear but faster lap times. So for me, it's just knowing the conditions, feeling the grip underneath you, and just being a little bit cautious, because more often than not you'll see drivers going in a little too hot, getting sideways and then on the wet line, which obviously sends them off. So yeah, the key for me is just taking it nice and easy, being really smooth, really smooth throttle application as well, so not giving it a bootful at any moment, just easing on the power, looking after your tyres. That's probably about it. And obviously when you're racing someone, it's better in the wet, rather than making a move on them, it's better to stick to the dry line and force them into an error. So that's kind of what I tend to do, unless the opportunity really does open up, and when you've got a lot better tyre wear, you do end up finding more opportunities. So it's just a little bit of patience and consideration.
Well, I must say, it's been thoroughly enjoyable watching you throughout the course of this Brands Hatch triple header. So, John Munro from YouTube, congratulations, sir, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Can I just say well done as well to Matt for the Drivers' Championship, and obviously my teammates Ross and Dan, because they've been amazing all season. They've smashed it out the park. And I mean, Dan came into that last race with broken force feedback and no practice, and went from last to second. So yeah, those guys have been amazing, and they've been really helpful with setups and work as always. So yeah, it's been a pleasure racing with them all. And yeah, just thank you to everyone involved in the organisation and the broadcast, because it's been a really fun season.
Ever the professional. Brilliant. Thanks very much, John, and congratulations again on a great season and a great final round.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Great stuff there, Chaz, from John. Always a pleasure to talk to him.
Yeah, definitely. He's always just such a pleasant guy. You know, he finds the positives in everything and has a very neutral outlook on a lot of things. And you know, that's what you need in championships like this sometimes, because like you said before, you can have very tough days in such a competitive season. So it's nice to see that even just in his interviews as well. And we're now going to speak to another man that also had quite a tough night at points, but certainly an entertaining one. Paul, if you want to take it away with Chris Butcher.
Thank you very much, Chris. Congratulations on, as Chaz quite rightly said, an incredibly entertaining 3 races. We thoroughly enjoyed the trials and tribulations. What did it feel like from your point of view behind the wheel?
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean the wet conditions always give you an unpredictable race, and it wasn't particularly easy to drive in the front wheel drive car, but it sort of came to us through the race because the rain got worse and Matt started struggling and he sort of fell back through the pack. So yeah, it was nice battling with people. I kind of got the setup a little bit wrong in race 1, changed a few things up and it worked really well in race 2. And yeah, it was just nice to have some really good battles with people, really, and yeah, proud of that move on Ross at the end of race 2. That was
mate, mate, that was unbelievable.
But yeah, I mean, I'd been threatening to get by him for a little while, and I was just trying to size up where I could get past, and I kind of figured out if I could put him a little bit offline down the sort of penultimate straight, then I had a chance of getting through, and I saved a little bit of push to pass specifically for that. So yeah, it just about worked out.
Yeah, that was a beautiful pass. But actually, I mean, this is my first time in this championship for this round, and I've said on air a few times, the level of driving standards, even in atrocious weather conditions, has been incredible. Can I hear a few words from you about what it's been like as a competitor this season, and how you've found the racecraft and the racing across a pretty varied calendar of events here in the Touring Car Series?
Yeah, there's been some ups and downs, to be honest with you. I mean, the start of the season went really well for us, and there's been a few sort of car updates along the way as well, which have either made the front wheel drives easier to drive or made them harder to drive. You know, it's sort of flip-flopped the whole season, really. So there was a little phase in the middle of the season where things were getting a little bit heated, and you know, Aidan, who's the steward, had he had a few stern words with a few of us, and got things back under control. So yeah, it's been pretty decent. You know, there is a mix of talent in VMO, and I quite like that about the series, because you've got some people that might not be quite as quick, but they've got an accessible form of, you know, touring car racing. But then there's a few of us sort of a bit more towards the front that have, you know, me, Ross, John, Matt, Phil, we've known each other for a long time. You know, we've probably been racing together now for the best part of 12, 13 years. So yeah, we know each other quite well, and we know to be respectful with each other and what have you, and just have fun, basically. So yeah, it's, you know, like I said, ups and downs, but it's been pretty decent overall.
Yeah, it's certainly been very entertaining. And before we let you get off for the evening, is there anything you want to say to any teams or any partners, or anything you want to say to anybody before we say goodbye to you? Anybody to thank?
Well, I think the biggest thanks have to go to VMO for putting this on, because obviously without all the hard work that they do, it wouldn't be possible. And I know I've been critical at times, but you know, we've got to remember that everybody puts the time into this for free, and we've got to appreciate that. And obviously to yourself and Chaz for coming along and doing some of the broadcasts. And then finally, obviously, I need to say a big well done to Matt for winning the championship, because he's just been phenomenal this season in that car. You know, you can say what you want, but Matt's a great driver, and he's done a great job this year.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Chris. And we thoroughly enjoyed watching you race over the course of the season. So big well done to you, and hopefully we'll see you again in future editions. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Chris. And again, Matt, Chaz, that's been very entertaining to see Chris over the course of this weekend, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I'm used to being called Matt. My brother's called Matt, and people often confuse us, even though we look nothing alike. It's just he's better looking. Honestly, though, yeah, Chris has been a star. You know, I raced against him last season, and even the season before that, I believe it was as well. And you know, he's a very competitive bloke. You know, and even in sim racing, it's very easy to let that competitive edge get the better of you as well. You know, and Chris is he's mellowed out a lot, it has to be said, but he's at heart, he's still a really lovely bloke, and he knows the right way to go about things. You know, and it's just great to have a chat with him about the season and how it's been, and he knows it's not been the best season for him, but still right up there in the standings, and that's what matters come the end of it. And being right up there at the end of it, well, that certainly matters to Phil Morby, because Phil, finally you get the win this season, mate. And I mean, it didn't come easy at the end though, because good old flipping Kel was reeling you in, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a poorish start on that wet side, and just kind of managed to kind of cover quite quickly, and then shenanigans happened behind me, and it was just run away. And I think I got lucky with the Infinity. There was like an Infinity blockade going on, and then Dan Kell slipped through it, and it was just kind of managing those softs and just managing everything. And yeah, it was. I literally started the last lap with 2 seconds. I'm thinking, just don't mess up, don't mess up. Goes wide at turn 1. Don't mess up, don't mess up. Goes wide at turn 3. You know, kind of. No, it's good. It's my first win, I think, at VMO as well.
Well, that's what a time to do it as well, because now you ride the high all the way through the off season into the next season, and that can be so important. I was going to ask whether you're still cursed by the time that we had a wonderful scrap here on track, and I decided to commentate as curse you while we were driving next to each other down the straight.
I was having memories of that going down, like, because I had Chucky, a friend of mine, kind of telling me like gaps, just kind of keep it all cool, and I was just thinking like, yeah, this is what happened last time. Yeah. No, it was just kind of. I mean, I think you said at Silverstone now, like, my racing craft has improved over the last couple of years. I suppose it has a little bit, but I've also got better at understanding front wheel drive. Like, I switched a couple of seasons ago from rear to front, and it's just kind of with rear wheel drive, you make a mistake, you will suffer. Whereas I always felt with the front wheel drive, you can make a bit of a mistake and kind of power out and recover. Which, definitely on a evening like tonight with the grip you had, it definitely was useful.
Well, we saw that even in race 3. You know, you were completely sideways down Paddock Hill Bend, and then fast forward about 20 minutes, and you were winning the race. It was just remarkable.
It was, once Kel got by, it was just trying to keep it cool, and just it was kind of, I was managing the tyres, and then once Kel was catching, it was like, right, I'm gonna have to go and just hope the tyres last.
Yeah.
And that's when the mistakes started creeping in. But yeah, it's been a fun season. It kind of started off a bit slow, but it definitely picked up during the second half. And I've really enjoyed myself.
And that's what it's all about, Phil. That is why we're here, and that's why we're doing it. And it's wonderful to hear that you've had that. We are going to have to very quickly move on, I'm afraid, mate. But is there anybody that you'd like to give a quick shout out to?
Just to say thank you to Chuggy for helping out kind of this season, bits and bobs, and also thanks to the admins for running everything. And thanks to you guys as well. Glad to have you guys on board, and kind of hopefully you've had fun commentating as much as we've had fun racing.
Oh, me and Paul, to be fair, we've learned that whenever we get together, we have each other in stitches, no matter what we're doing. It's been absolutely fantastic fun tonight. It's been great racing, and it's just been a good laugh all around, hasn't it, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. And a massive congratulations, Phil, for a great victory. But my goodness me, that's an eye-catching colour scheme on the car.
I love it. You can see it from a mile away. Helps you guys out. It's a good laugh. It's a little bit. I love the split livery. So
when I was desperately scratching around for positive things to say, that's one thing I did come up with. It makes it easy for us.
It's not the most professional-looking livery in the world, but it's mine. I did it myself. I like
it. Man. I like
good on you, mate.
Well done, man. Great performance.
Cheers. Thank you.
Nice one, Phil. We'll hopefully see you again next season.
Yeah, catch you around.
Cheers. Right then, that leaves us with well, time to wrap up, basically. I'm afraid, Paul. It's all good things must come to an end, but what an amazing night of racing, mate. Great way to round out the season, and, well, to get us two Muppets in the commentary box together, it's I imagine Mike Yow's had a big smile on his face the whole time as well. But what have you made of your introduction to this championship and the wrap-up of the season?
The introduction to the championship, I think it's been massively impressive that we've managed to lower the level of the entire final day with our commentary, all the hard work that everybody puts behind the scenes at VMO and the drivers and everything, and we've come along as a couple of idiots and spoilt it all. But no, on a serious note, fantastic stuff. Touring car racing's where it's at for me. Absolutely adore Tin Top Racing in any way, shape and form, and these guys on a very, very tricky circuit in incredibly difficult conditions have gone out there and put on a superb display of racecraft and respect, and it's been nice to hear from many drivers at the end congratulating our champion, congratulating the people behind the scenes that put these events on, and often that's overlooked, that there are a lot of people working for absolutely nothing to put on a fabulous show for everybody at home and for everybody taking part. So in that regard, great to see that respect, and I've had an absolute blast, mate.
Lovely stuff. Always good to hear it, Paul, and it's great to work with you again. It's been a massive, massive laugh. Thank you very much. And thank you, of course, to Mike Yow as well, our wonderful producer. Thanks to all the admins for putting on another absolute corker of a championship. And thank you to everyone that's been watching tonight. It's been great fun bringing you this entertainment, which has been the VMO TCUK Hybrid Championship here from Brands Hatch. Matt Richards is Drivers' Champion and Independence Champion. Zansho Simsport, if I can say it right, Zansho Simsport take the Teams Championship, and that's us done for the season. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. We'll see you again next season.